Maverick News, the antivirus program for your mind. And now, the Freedom Reporters.
Good evening, Maverick family. I'm Rick Walker. This is the Maverick News Channel, and we are the Freedom Reporters.
And I'm Brendan Kennedy, your co-host at Maverick News, and happy Wednesday. I hope everybody is doing all right. How are you today, Rick Walker?
I'm just fine, thanks, Brendan. And we have lots of things to talk about tonight, lots on tap, pretty stacked show. We're going to touch on this test firing of a new missile by Russia, which sort of sends a message to the West, I think. It's timely to speak about it, especially after what we talked about last night, where we did highlight test balloons being floated by the U.S., suggesting to me that the Biden administration would like nothing more than to actually send in troops, boots on the ground in Ukraine, to go toe-to-toe with Russian forces. And of course, if that were to happen, Canada would likely follow suit, and we would end up sending troops over there ourselves. So more to say about that tonight. We'll show you that missile launch. And there are other things to talk about related to that as well. What do you have over on your side? What do you want to highlight?
Today we're going to highlight a story that the National Post broke out about Russian troll farms aiming disinformation war at Canadian anti-vaxxers, says global affairs expert. I think I have an interesting take on this, and it has a lot to do with the freedom movement in particular, but we'll get into my thoughts on what I think about it when the time comes around for that story. But I think it's worth talking about for sure.
And Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was in the Kitchener-Waterloo, Cambridge area today, held a news conference talking about housing, but then got into the whole Ukraine issue over there as well during a news conference. And then he met with members of the Muslim community, where, of course, again, he pulled out the race card, started talking about racism because, you know, Prime Minister Blackface just can't resist. And I have some thoughts about that we will share with you in due course tonight. Later in the broadcast, you also will be able to share your thoughts because we will open up the phone lines and take calls from folks, from members of our Maverick family. We'll put some voices to the names and take it beyond just reading comments on the air here tonight. If you want to call in and join us, you'll be able to do that in just a little while later in the broadcast and comment on today's top news stories with us. Participate and engage. So, are we ready to get right into it, Brendan, or is there anything else you want to highlight before we start talking about all of this?
Let's jump right into it. I think we should start with the missile launch for sure.
Sure. Okay, so a new SARMAT ICBM, intercontinental ballistic missile, was test fired by the Russians. This is significant because it's definitely intended to send a message to the West. It is, to a degree, routine because Russia has been developing this new missile technology for a number of years now. And this SARMAT missile is really designed, created to replace their existing missiles. So let's bring up the video of this test firing and we'll share it with you now. This is Vladimir Putin watching the test from the comfort of his office. Here we go.
Товарищ Верховный Главнокомандующий, на первом государственном искупательном космодроме в Архангельской области завершена подготовка
Уважаемые товарищи,
These are intercontinental ballistic missiles. So they're capable of intercontinental flight, and they're fast. Now, this is significant because Putin is saying that these tests should make the West think twice before trying to escalate any kind of conflict. So the missile was launched from a location in northern Russia.
Which is an interesting thing. Northern Russia borders pretty much Canada. Like, the United States and Russia are not that far apart if you think about the globe and that sort of thing. It'd be very easy for them to send one of these over the globe and into our hemisphere. Like, very easy.
Putin says this is a big, significant event. That's what he's being quoted as saying for Russia's defense industry. He said the SARMAT will ensure Russia's security from external threats and make those who, in the heat of frantic, aggressive rhetoric, his words, try to threaten our country, think twice. Again, that's Vladimir Putin's words. Those are his words. It's important because this highlights something that is important in that Russia over the years has continued to develop its defensive technologies. But under Obama, in particular, the U.S. defense capabilities began to slip. And really over decades, the United States, I think, has been losing ground on the technology front. NATO has a definite advantage over Russia in terms of conventional forces. But Russia has the most nukes. Russia also has hypersonic missile technology, which the West does not have. This allows these missiles to evade defensive measures, meaning that these missiles can get through. They're hypersonic. They have hypersonic capabilities with the warheads that they carry. These are also capable of carrying multiple warheads. They're called MIRVs. They're multiple independently targetable reentry vehicles. Basically what that means is each missile is capable of carrying multiple warheads, which when deployed mid-flight, each one of those missiles then can split off and target separate locations. that kind of technology has been around for a long time. But you add that to hypersonic technology, there isn't really anything currently in the Western arsenal or in the defense war chest to combat this. This gives the Russians a definite upper hand. This is something we really need to be concerned about, especially when both sides have adopted a first strike philosophy or position with regard to the use of nuclear weapons. So when I hear people talking about should we send troops to Ukraine to defend democracy, I get really nervous because Putin has a lot of incentive to go nuclear before the West does. But then, because they have the upper hand on the nuclear front, I get worried that the people in charge here in the West, in the United States, they might get a little trigger happy. Who knows what President Biden might actually end up doing. The man can't find himself, let alone find the button to push. Or maybe he will find the button to push a little too easily. I don't know.
Or maybe he forgot the code.
You know, he's not all there, folks.
No, he's not.
So who really is in charge? We don't really know. But there's a group of powerful people behind him controlling things. And I'm getting very nervous about where I'm seeing all of this going. So that's the new development today. The United States, of course, says this is sort of a routine thing. The Russians notified the U.S. and NATO before they test fired this missile. So they're in compliance with all treaties in conducting this test. The U.S. says it's not a surprise, but it does send a clear message to the West in the face of escalating tensions in Ukraine.
And the timing of it too, right? Like, look at the timing. It's definitely something that it's designed to sway things into Russian favor or to at least deter further actions from happening in Ukraine. And that's why these dictators do these things. It's like, it's not going to be, this type of stuff just makes me so nervous, really. Really, it does. We talked about it before on the show here. We no longer are this bastion of isolation from the rest of the world. We are right in the thick of things now.
And we haven't really faced a situation like this since, as I've said before, since the Cuban Missile Crisis. Not really. And I think this is much more serious. I don't like the rhetoric. I don't like the saber rattling. And I don't like the fact that we're facing a nuclear threat here. We're closer to a nuclear war than we've ever been before. And we see the media just ramping all of this stuff up. Ramp it up, ramp it up. Get people all jacked up. We see trial balloons being floated by U.S. officials trying to escalate this whole thing in Ukraine. Half-truths, propaganda. And the word I'm getting is that there are actually U.S. troops in Ukraine already. That they may be there posing, or maybe even are there independently, but the word is they have some people in there right now assisting, directing, and that concerns me as well.
And that's a tale as old as its time, right? Like, that's, if you want to talk about the French Foreign Legion for a second there, that's the whole reason why they were constructed, is so that they don't need to care about them, and that they are able to go in and do things like go into a country where maybe they shouldn't be, or that sort of thing. But it very much concerns me in the sense that there's a lot of buildup happening in Eastern Europe. We have Canadian troops that have been sent to Poland. We have United States troops that are already in Eastern Europe and NATO countries as it is, and they've been building that up. So there is a huge buildup. We are in an arms race. That's what that whole thing was. It wouldn't surprise me if the United States were to come out with their own video showing some new fancy gadget that they're going to say, "Oh, don't mess with us, otherwise we might use this gadget here."
Except I don't think they have anything new. They haven't been developing much in the way of new technology for a long time. The United States is behind. That's the other thing that concerns me. The balance of power is out of whack.
Mm-hmm. But they, even if they don't have anything, they may fake something. And we've seen that sort of thing happen. I mean, in World War II, Churchill used inflatable tanks. So they were just these rubber tanks that they designed to fool the enemy, basically. So there could be all kinds of deceptive tactics they might go into. And it wouldn't surprise me if they do that. But this is a mess here. We're back in a Cold War. This is exactly what a Cold War is.
Oh, this is worse than a Cold War. This is more than a Cold War. The Cold War was a war of words, posturing. This is an actual war. This is a proxy war. That's what this is. This is not a Cold War. This is a proxy war. This is the West fighting Russia through Ukraine. This is the United States fighting Russia through Ukraine. There are U.S. soldiers over there right now on the ground in Ukraine. Make no mistake. I don't know how many, but there are soldiers from NATO countries in there right now, including, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to go out on a limb here a little bit, and I'm going to tell you that there are Canadians over there fighting as well. Are they there with the knowledge, blessing, sanctioning of, say, the Canadian government? Officially, no, but there are soldiers over there. Today, at a news conference in Kitchener-Waterloo, and then I think Trudeau went to Cambridge afterward, the Prime Minister was actually asked about Canadians being on the ground in Ukraine, and he didn't deny it. He didn't deny it. He did, however, say something, just one thing that I agreed with today, and we'll play this clip for you in a moment. But he did say one thing. He said that Canadians who are there should get out, because if they get into trouble, the Canadian government will be very limited in what it can do to assist Canadians. This also brings me back to a reference that I made, I think it was yesterday, maybe the day before. I'm pretty sure it was yesterday, where I did talk about some friends of ours who are over there on a humanitarian mission of some kind. I don't really know what they're doing. I didn't know they were going to go, but I have noticed a few posts from them, from the Loads of Love organization. And they're over there right now, and they'll be coming home soon, apparently. But they've been over in Ukraine, traveling around very close to the front lines and really in harm's way. I've been very worried about them, as I think many people here in our local community have been. But I would rather see them just come home, because I think they are in a lot of danger over there. I don't think it's wise for anyone to go to Ukraine. Now, maybe they had some pressing matters. I know that they work with an orphanage over there. Maybe they really had to go. I don't know. Because the posts that I've seen really didn't explain it. I'm just not sure why they had to go. But they're there, and I'm just wishing them all the best and hope that they get home safely. But that is also what the Prime Minister said today. He said, if you're over there and you're Canadians, if you're a Canadian, get out, get home, because if you get into trouble, the Canadian government will be very limited in what they can do to assist you. But that's also referring to people who may have gone over there to fight. Make no mistake, there are Canadians over there right now
Oh, yeah.
fighting, and Americans and others from other countries.
Two individuals from England have recently been captured by the Russian government, and they have put out videos out there about them. And you know what's going to happen to these guys? They're not going to be entitled to the same rights as a Ukrainian soldier would. Not that it seems to matter with this war at all anyway, but these are individuals who are just going to be used as bargaining chips now. And it's making the position for Western countries, it'll make it messy.
So my advice to anybody that's thinking of going to Ukraine, don't. It makes no sense to me. Unless you are going there for some very specific reason to assist with something that is very pressing, that can't be handled by someone who's already there, I don't know what that might be. But if you don't have to go to Ukraine, don't go to Ukraine. It's a war zone. You can be killed. If you're going there to fight, my advice is don't go. It probably won't end well for you. And if you're going on a humanitarian mission, again, unless there's some real pressing, I don't recommend it because I think it's just way too dangerous right now. Also, resources over there are already limited.
Yes.
So if you're running into those places, you're putting pressure potentially on those resources. So unless you can go there and render some sort of real assistance that can't be administered in any other way, what is the point in going to Ukraine? Find other ways to help and be productive and support efforts to get civilians out of harm's way. But I just don't think it's wise to go. And I would absolutely agree with what the Prime Minister said briefly about that today.
And
Where he said, if you're over there, get out, get home while you can.
a lot of foreign citizens who have joined up for their armies over there, they're not being provided with any training. And situations I've seen collectively, it's always talked about. They're not giving out people any military kits. They're giving you nothing for ammunition, so you can't even defend yourself. It's a mess.
And this is really, really messy because this is a proxy war.
Mm-hmm.
This is not as simple as the mainstream media is making it out to be. The West has been putting pressure on Russia by expanding eastward toward Russia, adding more and more countries to NATO. And they've been poking the bear, and we all know it. Except for people who haven't been paying attention until just now. And they're getting this information from the mainstream media, and to them, this is very, very simplistic. Putin's crazy, and he just woke up one day and decided to take over Ukraine, and we have to stop him now before he heads in to the rest of Europe and starts invading there, just like Hitler. That's not what's going on at all. We've been talking about this night after night whenever we've been touching on this subject matter. And today, the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, commenting again. He went to Kitchener-Waterloo today to talk about housing, but of course the topic quickly turned to Ukraine. During the news conference portion of his visit to KW. So here's Trudeau with some remarks earlier today on Ukraine and the situation there.
Start with the first question. Hi, this is Hala with CBC. I'm just wondering, will the heavy artillery you announced yesterday come from the Canadian Army inventory? Will you provide ammunition, and will that be guided ammunition as well? And when will you commit to replace these and other weapons taken from Canadian inventories? In English and French, please.
From the very beginning of Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine, and indeed in the weeks before, we've been there for Ukraine. We've been sending lethal and
I just want to stop there for a minute. Interesting how he uses that word illegal, and he referred to the truckers' freedom convoy in Ottawa and in other freedom convoys as illegal as well. Isn't it interesting how he uses the same language? And here's a question. In what sense is a war ever legal? When is killing people legal? Yes, there are rules even in war under the Geneva Convention and other treaties, of course. So there are, I guess, humanitarian ways to kill people. But when is a war legal and when is it illegal? Who determines whether it's illegal? Justin Trudeau? Because apparently he's putting freedom truckers in the same category as Vladimir Putin. He can't seem to distinguish between the two. It's just everything he doesn't like is just illegal. So he just determines, he just deems it to be, therefore it must be. It's a carefully chosen word designed to get a particular kind of response from the public. Illegal. It's an illegal invasion.
Non-lethal military assistance. We've been there for humanitarian support, significant financial support for the people in the government of Ukraine, as well as they deal with this unconscionable, illegal invasion.
Illegal invasion. Okay, man. Like, all right. What would have constituted a legal invasion?
I have the answer to that.
Okay.
An invasion that he would like to do. So if he were to do an invasion, that would be a legal invasion.
Okay. So, like, was the U.S. invasion of Iraq legal? And when Canada supported that, was that legal?
Well,
when Canada, when the United States was opposing the forces in Syria, was that legal or illegal? When Obama dropped thousands of bombs all over the Middle East, was that legal or illegal? I'm just asking. What's legal and what's illegal? You know what? Is she just throwing this word around without any real definition? And a lot of people just soak it up.
And that they do. I was driving around today, and I was flabbergasted by the amount of Ukraine flags and the amount of on cars and on houses and all over the neighborhood. I was just like, what the hell is going on here?
It's the latest thing.
It's the latest thing.
That's right. Whatever the latest thing is, that's what you have to support. Just the latest thing. And, you know, even the truckers' convoy, honestly, folks, it started out as the latest thing to support. And that's why so many people seem to get behind it. It was just the latest thing to support. The truckers were rolling, the Canadian flags were waving, thousands of people were coming out. A lot of people who were standing on the sides of the highway, they didn't know what they were supporting. I'd like to think they were all in on freedom. The truth is, these are the same people who are probably waving Ukrainian flags tonight, saying, let's send troops in to defend democracy in Ukraine. When they thought the trucker convoy, freedom convoy, was the latest thing to support, they were all out there waving their flags. Probably half of them. Until Justin Trudeau came out and started calling them all a bunch of racists, misogynistic terrorists engaged in an illegal occupation. And then they all switched sides. So now you have, you know, probably a 50-50 split. Half the people saying, I think the truckers were okay. And the other half of the people have moved on to the next latest, greatest thing to support because they're just mindless and susceptible to whatever the media happens to tell them at any given time. And that they probably wouldn't admit that they were out there waving their Canadian flag now because they were being made to feel ashamed. Anyway, back to more of our great leader, the Great White Hope.
By Russia. We have every step of the way responded to the requests and the specific asks of the Ukrainian government, of President Zelensky, with whom I speak regularly.
He's my buddy. I speak with him regularly. Whatever he wants, he gets. Zelensky wants heavy artillery. We'll send her over.
And their most recent ask was exactly for that, for heavy artillery. For reasons of operational security, I can't go into the details at this point on how and what we're getting to them exactly, but I can assure you we will have more to say in the coming days as we deliver what they actually need to be able to continue.
You know what we need? We need to know what the hell he's doing. We need to know what's being spent. We need to know what weapons are being sent over. We need to know why, because it's being done in our name. And if he's sending weapons into a war zone, I want to know why. And I want to know what's being sent. I want to know how much money is being spent. I want to know whether that's in the best interests of Canadians. I want to know if that's in the best interest of the world. I want to know a lot. I don't think it's acceptable for that guy to be just taking a phone call from Vladimir Zelensky and saying, yeah, sure, Zell, we'll send over whatever you want. You want some extra heavy artillery? No problem. We'll just take some out of the storage barn out in Winnipeg, and we'll just have her flown over to you. No problem. Eh?
We'll also give you a free extra couple of bazookas.
Don't worry about it. I know people are going to ask, but we just won't tell them. We'll just send over whatever. Christia, hey, what do we got in storage over there for laughs? Send over a few extra machine guns and, stock them up on some of that extra ammo, eh? Okay, Zell, it's on its way. No problemo, eh? No, I want to know, man. I want to know what the hell he's doing, and I want to know how much money. I want to know whether it's going to deplete the Canadian military's ability to defend Canada. I want to know what position that leaves our military in, our stockpiles. Where's all this money coming from? I want to know. And I'll tell you this, Canadians damn well deserve to know. I don't think it's sufficient for him to, for operational reasons. We just can't tell you. Yeah, because you know the other thing that goes on in wartime? A lot of corruption, a lot of pocket lining. It happens in countries all over the world. So I want to make sure that this guy, who has a pretty bad history when it comes to ethics, as we know, I want to make sure that he's above board. I want to make sure that he's not just, filtering money off to some of his liberal friends. I want to know. And Canadians deserve to know. We need to know. Because if you're going to send weapons to some other country and put them into the hands of Nazis, in many cases, and then give them the ability to kill other human beings in our name, I damn well think we deserve to know exactly what the hell you're doing, especially given how incompetent this guy has been in every other aspect of his job. So why the hell would I trust him with frickin' weapons? Smug.
I'm sorry. This is just really worth mentioning. There is a comment, and this person said, "Send Antifa over there."
Yeah,
that's I think that's a much better idea. Instead of sending artillery over, we just send them our Antifa.
This fascist prime minister of ours just going to send over all these weapons to real Nazis while he sits here, and you'll hear him soon turn on a dime here and then whip out the racism card. Just watch this crap.
not just to defend their own homeland against this illegal Russian invasion,
Illegal.
but to defend the very values and principles that we hold dear in Canada and around the world.
You think he's not using that word intentionally? He keeps using it over and over and over again. That's to build public support
Of
for his
course.
position. That's what this is. That's what it is.
Of course.
It's I don't know what is illegal and it's a war.
and he's
Everything
also-
in war is freaking illegal. You're killing people.
Exactly.
I mean-
it's totally designed as a psyop sort of thing, or some sort of psychological warfare with it, because everybody's going to hear it every time he says it, and he wants it to
illegal.
be included
illegal.
in every single news clip they make about him. He wants it to be portrayed. Oh, the illegal war, the illegal occupation.
World as free and open democracies.
Ukraine is a corrupt country. We're not defending any democracy in Ukraine. I'm sorry.
Dès le début de ce conflit en Ukraine, avec l'invasion illégale de la Russie, nous avons été là pour les gens de l'Ukraine, avec de l'aide militaire, y compris avec des armes. Nous sommes là pour de l'aide financière, de l'aide humanitaire, et on va continuer
And
de
people,
l'être
a
en
lot of so many
sanctions,
Canadians
sans
just
précédent
buy this.
sur l'économie russe et sur les leaders russes, dont Vladimir Poutine. Nous allons continuer d'être là pour répondre aux besoins et aux demandes de nos amis ukrainiens, du président Zelensky.
And as you see in the graphic there, we mentioned this yesterday, that Canada has imposed new sanctions on 14 more Russians, including the adult daughters of Vladimir Putin. You know what? I don't think Putin cares. Let me be quite honest with everybody. I don't think that Canada's really on Russia's radar. We're just not important enough, especially not right now. This is all window dressing, posturing, virtue signaling by the Prime Minister here.
Nos valeurs en tant que démocratie libre et ouverte.
And just a quick follow-up, do you have any idea when these weapons or others taken from Canadian inventories will be replaced?
So she is, as the reporter from CBC is suggesting, that this heavy artillery is being taken from the Canadian inventory.
The ability of Canada to contribute fully to NATO is one that is extremely important for us. And every step of the way, as we support Ukraine, including with military equipment and munitions, we are also making sure that Canada continues to have the capacity to operate, not just to defend Canada, but to participate fully in NATO operations
Canada doesn't have much of a military to begin with, folks.
as well.
No.
Next question. Hi, Prime Minister. I'm Stephanie with CTV Kitchener. So Russia has claimed that there are Canadians fighting in Mariupol right now. Is the Canadian government aware of any Canadians fighting for Ukraine there? And will there be any assistance given if they are captured?
We know that Canadians feel very strongly about supporting people in Ukraine. Across the country, people have been opening up their homes, their communities.
That's not what we're talking about here, and that's not what the question was. Did you notice what she said?
Mm-hmm.
She said that Russia has accused Canada of having soldiers in Ukraine fighting right now. And listen to his answer. He didn't deny it. He didn't say no. Let's listen further. But he's talking about people providing humanitarian aid here right now. Okay. We're asked what he's being asked about is Canadians fighting in Ukraine.
To support Ukrainians either fleeing war or supporting them through donations and through delivery of equipment and supports. We also know that a number of Canadians have chosen to go and fight alongside Ukrainians, either because of their own Ukrainian heritage or because they want to help stand up for democracy against this illegal Russian invasion. There are
Illegal.
no active.
Is it legal for a Canadian or any other foreign national to go to Ukraine and fight? If you do that, what does that make you? Are you part of a foreign legion of some kind, or are you a mercenary? What are you?
I would classify it as a mercenary.
Are you
Personally.
being paid at some point? So that would, in my mind, make you a mercenary if you're accepting payment to go in and fight, but you're not actually part of, say, the Ukrainian military. These raise interesting questions, and as we've seen from the Russians, they're not prepared to provide any kind of leniency to any Canadian or American who might be caught over there fighting.
Absolutely not. And we've shut diplomacy right off to the point that there was a G20 summit today, 9 hours ago. Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland was there, and all of the Western nation representatives who were there, they walked out of the room as soon as Russia was speaking. So we have no diplomacy whatsoever. That reporter very much knows that. We're not talking to Russia at all right now, and we're not even sitting in the same room as them. Is there going to be help for them? Hell no. We're not talking to Russia. And that's a very dangerous thing, actually, if you think about it. But
what's more dangerous is having Canadians there, or Americans, especially Americans, fighting there, because the optics are really, really dangerous. It's an additional way to poke the bear.
Absolutely.
It brings us that much closer to a nuclear conflict. If you're fighting a proxy war with Russia through Ukraine, you're going toe to toe with Russian forces. This is not like fighting in Libya or even in fighting in Syria. This is a different animal. And this is very dangerous. Let's continue with the Prime Minister.
Forces being deployed by Canada in Ukraine, obviously, but there are certainly individual citizens who've chosen to contribute. We will always be there to try and help Canadians, but what we said from the very beginning was Canadians should be leaving Ukraine because we're going to be very limited in our capacity to help them if things go wrong.
That's the first thing he said. That may be the only thing he's ever said that I actually agree with. If you're there, get the hell out. And if you're thinking of going, don't. Bad idea. Stay out of there. If you are caught in Ukraine, God knows what's going to happen to you. Whether you're there in a humanitarian mission or whether you're there fighting. If you're there fighting for sure and they identify you as a combatant, God help you.
Yeah.
Because the regular provisions under, say, the Geneva Convention, I'm not sure that they'll be recognized.
In fact, Russia said that they won't be recognized. And I would go as far to say that it's very likely that Russia could just charge you with either spying or sabotage or something else like that and shoot you in the field.
The other thing that happens is there's a lot of confusion over there right now. We've been sending over guns and other armaments. We've been arming civilians. That clouds the situation immensely. The Ukrainian forces are using cars, not just military vehicles. They're taking refuge and shelter in residential buildings. And we've seen them even using things like hospitals as command bases. We've seen that for sure. So when you have a lot of civilians running around who now then are armed and are being encouraged to fight, and then you add in a bunch of people from other countries showing up who are then armed, who might otherwise be identified as, say, civilians, but they become combatants. So you've got these people in the mix, and then you have people there for humanitarian purposes. And I think it becomes very difficult when you're on the ground and there's all this chaos and there's street fighting, I think it's difficult for forces on either side to distinguish between who's friendly, who's a foe, who's a civilian, who's a combatant. How do you identify this guy versus that guy? Who's a journalist? And that's how people end up getting shot who
Yeah.
aren't actually combatants. That's how civilians end up being blown up, shot, killed in various other ways. This is not a good situation. So if you're going over there and you're even there on a humanitarian mission, you may be mistaken as a combatant and you could easily be killed, or even just killed as collateral damage in some sort of an attack, just hit by shrapnel or who knows what. But I'm pretty sure that a lot of these Ukrainian forces, in particular the Azov battalion, which we've seen in some of these reports from, say, journalists like Patrick Lancaster, they embed themselves in residential areas and get entrenched in there. And it makes it very difficult that they blend in. It's hard for the Russians to determine who's a soldier, who isn't. And we've seen this happening in other countries in the past as well, in other conflicts. This complicates things immensely. So it's not safe. It's really, really, you go over, you can be killed. Don't go. Stay
You're
out.
right.
And if you're there, get the hell out and get out now. That's what I think.
You're right. We see that a lot on the Gaza Strip, where terrorist organizations will implant themselves in civilian buildings and blow missiles off of rooftops and send them into Israel and that sort of stuff. And then when the other country retaliates, they go, "Oh, look what they did. They're murdering innocent civilians. Oh my gosh, how could they do that?" Meanwhile, they instigate it, right?
Let's continue with Trudeau's comments.
Follow-up?
Yeah, it's similar to the question that my friend just asked you, but a member of the Ukrainian parliament tweeted this morning saying they're now starting to receive delivery of heavy artillery from Western countries. When should Canadians expect that the heavy artillery Canada is sending to arrive in Ukraine?
I think people understand that delivery of military equipment in the context of an illegal war by Russia is something that we have to be a little bit careful about what we broadcast and publicize and what we're doing. But in the coming days, I certainly hope to be able to share more about what is being sent and what was sent. But I can reassure Canadians that we are directly responding to the top requests that the Ukrainians have given for assistance in this current phase of the war, which is a redoubled efforts by Russia to take Donbass, and therefore there is very specific equipment that Ukrainians need, and Canadians can be comfortable that their government is there to support Ukrainians with what they need.
Next question. Good morning, Prime Minister. Jeff Outhet from the Waterloo Region Record. I want to return to housing for a second here. My son, 25 years old, still lives at home with us.
Well, we won't get into the housing thing right at the moment. That question is just about how housing prices are out of control and people in their 20s and 30s who are looking to maybe buy their first home simply can't afford it. And that's because the government has been printing too much money. Immigration is at levels that honestly are not manageable. The government has been irresponsible in the way they've handled immigration because there's just been too much of it. And so housing starts have not been keeping pace. They haven't been able to build enough homes in order to meet the demand. And that has resulted in massive price increases. It's resulted in inflation that is off the charts. And when you're looking at government stats saying that inflation is at 6.5%, 6.7%, that's bunk. That's government spin. Real inflation right now is probably closer to about 20 or maybe even 25%. That's where we've seen things go in the past year. And that's why, one of the reasons why, we're seeing all of this emphasis on the war in Ukraine. It takes the focus and the blame off the government, and they blame all of the country's problems on Vladimir Putin. It's a joke. It is a joke.
the construction of new housing over the what this budget and this focus of the government is on right now. But it's not going to be easy. It's going to take a number of years, and anyone who's promising that they have a quick fix for it is not being straight with Canadians.
That's why he's going to bring in another record number of immigrants this year, over 400,000, and they're going to take, the government quote is, an unlimited number of refugees from Ukraine. I'm all for helping people, but an unlimited number? What are we going to take the whole country in? How are we going to find sustainability, which is a phrase they like to throw around almost as much these days as the phrase or the term illegal? But how are they going to create a sustainable situation with that? I don't know where we're going to end up, man, but this is not responsible. This is just knee-jerk reaction governing with no planning, no thought, just political expediency and whatever plays well in the media at the moment.
It's going to take all of us working together to curb foreign speculation, to make sure that market is fairer, to create more housing units and offer, and to support families being able to save up to do that. And that's very much what we're focused on.
Oh, yeah. But if anybody's got a quick fix, they're just not telling you the truth, but he's got the quick fix.
Prime Minister, one follow-up question, different topic. We do not currently have a member of parliament in this region in cabinet, with the departure of Bardish Jagger from cabinet recently. Why is that? And will your government rectify that? Important area, and we've had cabinet membership for many years.
We continue to have an amazing team of...
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that her in the back far right? Bardish Jagger? Yeah, it is her.
Mm-hmm.
So she quit?
I'm not familiar with the local politics there.
Strong MP.
Like, what do you have to say to the interpreters who risked their lives to help Canada and now transition network to get interpreters out of?
Okay, this is also an
all
important
Canadians. But
thing
as
he's gonna
always,
touch
we're
on
looking
here.
to grow the teams in coming elections, and we're going to continue to stay connected with Canadians and build the kind of team that is responsive to what Canadians need.
Next question.
Morning, Prime Minister. Liam Casey with the Canadian Press. Major group helping veterans transition network to get interpreters out of Afghanistan. They're winding down operations, because they say there's bureaucratic cubes that are blocking efforts to get paperwork and causing this bottleneck. What do you have to say to the interpreters who risked their lives to help Canada and now feel abandoned by your government?
The situation in Afghanistan is heartbreaking. The taking over of that country by the Taliban has made it unbelievably difficult, not just for Canadians who served and sacrificed to build a better future for Afghans, but also to people who want to welcome people who've supported them to Canada. We have accepted and been able to draw to Canada well over 10,000 people fleeing Afghanistan. We are on our way to 40,000. The challenges we are facing.
40,000 immigrants from Afghanistan alone. 40,000 is what the target is that he set for that. We're going to get to well over 400,000 this year. No problem.
However, are very much linked to the difficulty of actually.
Do you think that's going to help or hurt or make worse the housing crisis?
Processing people from within Afghanistan,
Rick,
because
diversity is our strength, so it will help.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's what they keep telling us, right? It's going to be great for the economy to have more and more and more immigration. But how much is enough and how much is too much?
And
what's the right number?
And the budget will balance itself.
As might be imagined, the Taliban are not exactly being helpful in terms of bringing people out of Afghanistan to Canada. We continue to work with partners in the region and with allies around the world because we remain committed to welcoming over 40,000 Afghan refugees, translators, people who've worked with Canadians, human rights defenders, while at the same time we continue to be committed to humanitarian support within Afghanistan to make sure that opportunities continue to be there for people who remain.
What a load. You know, the entire Afghanistan situation has been an absolute disaster. The way the West, the United States, left Afghanistan was an absolute embarrassment. And it has undermined the credibility of the United States and NATO countries because they left translators and others who assisted Western forces high and dry. Many of those people have been executed, hunted down and executed because the United States pulled out the way that they did under Biden, under his absolute incompetence, and with the support of this guy. Because they left with their tail between their legs and left all that military hardware behind, arming the Taliban. They left people who had been helping us over there open to capture and execution. Just the way they did with the Kurds in Iraq. We've seen it happen time and time again. Why would anybody from any other country support Canada or the United States anymore? We're not good for our word. Trudeau's sitting here saying we're going to take in upwards of 40,000 refugees, immigrants from Afghanistan this year, and that we've so far taken in 10,000. But it's been a while since the U.S. has pulled out of there. And I'm telling you that translators, strategists, informants, a lot of those people, and because they actually leaked names of those people and the Taliban got a hold of that list, that was like a death list, man. We left those people high and dry. Why would anybody trust us anymore? The 40,000 people coming here, I doubt if many of them fall into the category of allies or informants or translators. A lot of those people are freaking dead now because of that guy that you're looking at on the screen right now. Not only that, Canada, our name internationally right now is mud. With a lot of countries around the world, mud, just like the United States. In fact, I received a phone call today from a person that's, I think, becoming a friend of mine. He's from India. And he said to me, why did I even come to Canada? He talked to me about how if he shows his Canadian passport around the world now, it's a problem because people no longer have any respect for the country. Why do you think that is? You're looking at it on the screen right now. You're looking at that. You're looking at the face of the man responsible for it. Justin Trudeau is an embarrassment to Canada. He's made Canada a laughingstock. Talks about democracy and freedom. Well, he has freedom protesters fighting for freedom and fighting to restore the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, beaten in the streets. This is a guy who talks about tolerance and anti-hate when all he does is spew hate. And now he wants to send, it's not just doesn't want to, he is sending more weapons into a war zone. And I want more information on it because I don't trust him. None of us should trust this guy. And my friend who called today, he's absolutely right. It used to be that when you traveled around the world, if you had a Canadian passport, people respected it. And Canada was viewed as a country largely of peace, a country that would send in peacekeepers. At least that was the
narrative.
Well, the image, right? That's the idea that people had in their minds. That was the image that Canada had, the reputation. And people had a lot of respect for Canada. And I think that there was some stock that you could put in that for a long time.
Yeah.
But today,
it used to be very common if you would travel around anywhere in the world, you always talked about put a Canadian flag on your backpack. That's not going to be a good thing anymore. And Trudeau has shown this. Trudeau has shown us this with his appearance around the world. Everybody's calling him out as a dictator, just like he is. We're seeing that everywhere. This whole situation that we had in Ottawa with the whole convoy thing has taken his mask, ripped it right off of his face, and exposed the ugly face that's actually there. So,
and don't think for 1 minute that the entire world is on board with this Western push against Russia in Ukraine. The entire world is not on board. A lot of Western countries are, but there is not unanimous support for this. And when they're having votes at the UN, quite a few countries are abstaining from voting on a lot of these issues. China, Pakistan, India. These are countries that are trying to think for themselves, and they're not just going to be led around by the nose. And, you look at a country like Pakistan, or you look at India. These are powerful countries now. They have the weaponry to back up their own sovereignty. People in Canada are so ignorant and so naive, so misinformed by our mainstream media and our prime minister, that they have a cliche in their head that goes way back in time. And they don't realize how powerful these other countries are today and how much influence they really have. And so Pakistan, for instance, has refused to condemn Russia for what is going on in Ukraine because they see what's going on. They see that NATO has been poking the bear. And you can disagree. That's fine. You can argue that Ukraine has the right to defend its sovereignty and stand up to Russia. We've been through all of those scenarios on this program. But don't think for 1 minute that there is unanimous support worldwide against Russia. This guy's aligned with Biden. This guy right here is a fascist. This guy right here has done a lot of things through his virtue signaling and his international cultural appropriation to embarrass Canada beyond belief. He has almost no credibility on the world stage anymore, as we've seen in the European Parliament. Members of the European Union, politicians calling him out for being such an embarrassment, talking about democracy when in fact he's leveled direct assaults on democracy and freedom in his own country. He's a dictator. And he's not done. He's just getting warmed up. Licenses for journalists, Bill C-18, censorship laws for the internet, for independent journalists. He's getting ready to hammer anybody that opposes him in any way, especially as he prepares for the next election in 2025. Well, folks, Canadians really need to wake up, and they need to be looking at this guy right here. And we need to be very careful about what we get behind and what we support and what we allow to happen in our name in places like Ukraine. It's not as simple as some crazed megalomaniac dictator named Putin who just woke up one day and decided to invade another country. It ain't that simple. A little more from the Prime Minister on this front.
Thank you. On another topic, there have been several attacks of late in and around mosques. The Imam of Dar al-Tawhid in Mississauga, where there was a man with an axe and unleashed bear spray. They say that the federal government's dragging their feet on the federal security infrastructure program that would help them beef up security. They're wondering when that money will be coming so that they can get things like security guards and surveillance equipment to help their members.
Over the past number of years, we have continued to invest in the community infrastructure program for mosques and synagogues and vulnerable community centers, and we will continue to be there with supports. But it's a really big shame that we have to. Canada shouldn't be a place where we have to worry about fences and armed guards and video cameras and security systems in places of worship. Canada is one of those countries that does diversity and inclusivity better than just about any other country in the world. But over the past years, we've seen a rise in hate crimes, a rise in intolerance and racist acts. Part of it is the pandemic, sure, and the stress and the anxiety that comes from that. But a part of it is a trend towards greater polarization in our politics, greater intolerance in our communities, that the vast, vast majority of Canadians stand against. Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, anti-Black racism, anti-LGBT, all the discriminations that we see on the rise, anti-Asian racism through the pandemic, are absolutely unacceptable. And as a government, and quite frankly, as Canadians, we will continue to stand together with vulnerable communities and demonstrate that there is no place for hatred and hateful acts in Canada, whether in real life or online. And we're going to continue to move forward to make sure that all Canadians are safe. And I look forward to sitting down with the Muslim community here in the Kitchener-Waterloo region later this afternoon to talk about the amazing things they're doing to contribute to the community while they celebrate the holy month of Ramadan.
Notice that he said no place for hate in real life or online.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, he's getting ready for big time censorship, baby. Big time censorship. You know something else? You want to know why there's division? You want to know why there's hate? You want to know why there's racism? You want to know why there are problems in this country with division? You're looking at it again on the screen, right there in that guy. That guy right there. He's the problem, not you, Brendan. The other guy over there, over there, right there. This guy right over here. He's the problem. He is the problem. Your prime minister is the problem. Nobody spews more hate than that guy. Nobody. He is full of hate. You notice who he left out when he was going down the list of all these vulnerable communities. What group did he leave out? A couple of groups, actually.
Yeah, he did. He couldn't. He just said LGBT. He didn't continue.
Yeah, he didn't get all the letters in there.
Yeah, I know. That's a hard one to remember.
Wasn't inclusive enough.
Wasn't inclusive enough. I think this is dangerous. But no, seriously, everybody here knows my stance on identity politics, and it drives me nuts. These are something. This is all stuff that we're being indoctrinated with, and now we're not going to be able to criticize these things, and that individuals will just be able to make whatever decisions they want without receiving any criticism from other individuals, which that's a whole part of society.
This guy over here plays a very dangerous game as do all the people around him, all the people of his political ilk. They play a very, very dangerous game of racism, of identity politics, and they play to a very specific demographic with the words that they choose. He's the reason for the division. He's the reason for the hate. And they need that in order to prosper politically. They profit from it politically. This guy benefits by dividing people. That's his modus operandi. That's what he does. When you go around day after day after day after week after month after year, and all you talk about is racism, 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 white supremacy, you would think there's a Ku Klux Klan white supremacist around every corner listening to this guy. Well, why do you think he talks like that? Because when he goes into a community, as he did today in Cambridge, and then meets with members of the community within the community, the Muslim community within that community, and he stands up there and he alludes to racism and talks about how the country, oh, we all need to come together. But isn't it unfortunate there are so many white supremacists among us? He's scaring people. He's dividing people. I'm telling you, Canada is one of the most welcoming, most tolerant places on the planet. It used to be more tolerant and even more welcoming until guys like Trudeau started spouting off in very aggressive ways about identity politics, about racism. Everything centers around racism. Why does he do that? He's doing it to score points and win votes among new Canadians. When you bring 40,000 Afghans here this year, and you bring them into the country, and you say, Canada's a great place, we're all about diversity, diversity is our strength, you get to keep your identity, and but you also get to be Canadian. Oh, but by the way, there is this group of white supremacists out there. Got to watch out for those guys. They're real nasty. They don't like you. So be careful, because you never know, eh? They might show up and do nasty things. And whatever you do, don't vote for that guy over there for that party, because that he's one of them. He's a white supremacist, and that guy from that other party over there, he's a racist for sure. You got to vote for me because I'll protect you. We're not the racists. See, we're liberals, and we're gonna take care of you. We're gonna give you all this free stuff, and we're gonna make sure that your family's taken care of, and any of your relatives can come over here, no problem. And we're gonna make sure that we have unlimited amounts of immigration. We're gonna protect you because we're not racists. We're the not racist party. But all those guys over there, they're a bunch of white supremacists. And then you have all these other politicians from these other parties, like say the Conservatives, who are so afraid of being called racists because it's so unpalatable that they fall into line. And they're not willing to stand up and say, wait a minute, racism isn't a problem to that level. But when you talk about it all the time and you portray it in that way and you divide people, you create the racism problem. What he's doing is he's borrowing trouble. He's perpetuating a problem that didn't exist until he created it. It's like telling a young child, how bad they are all the time. Eventually, they start to believe it. So you take a segment of the population and you demonize them. And yes, eventually, they're going to feel segregated. They'll feel under attack. You can't keep hammering people and saying, all you people over there, you're a bunch of racists. You keep treating them that way, characterizing them that way. I'll tell you, it has not largely been true. Are there some racists out there? Yup. Among what groups? All groups. There's prejudice among all different groups in society to some level, to some degree or another. You will find it in every community, every culture. It's not exclusive to one particular group. That's the truth. This group doesn't like that group. It doesn't matter what country you go to, you're going to find conflicts between different religions, different cultures. That's what wars end up being fought over quite often. But when you've got a multicultural country like Canada, you think there's not some racism over here and some prejudice over there? And of course you're going to find it. It exists, no question about it. What this guy does, though, this guy over here, he uses that as a tool, a weapon, a political weapon to manipulate people. And he manipulates New Canadians because the people coming here from other countries don't know Canada's history. They're not familiar with the people in their communities, largely. They have to move into these different communities. And as is normal, you get people from different countries sort of settling in pockets of areas together to support each other, which is only natural. And sometimes it takes years, maybe even decades, for people to become more integrated into the community so that they feel comfortable with maybe people who are from a completely different culture and have lived here for a long time. And then the new Canadians have to get to know know their new neighbors and vice versa. This guy here, it's not helpful to go around talking about racism, and hey, all you new Canadians, beware of all those white supremacists, all those bigots. They could hurt you. They can get violent. It's not freaking true. Canadians are welcoming. Canadians are accepting. Hit this rhetoric, this bullshit that this guy spews and all the people like him, all you left-wing, liberal, socialist, fascist idiots, you really need to stop. This is not helpful. He's the cause of the problem. You marginalize people like that and you get sometimes extreme behavior because, yeah, there are some wingnuts out there who don't know what to do when they feel victimized. So you push them. You push them into these acts. And I don't even know if he realizes that he's doing it. And I'm not making an excuse for anyone doing anything unspeakable like that. But I'm telling you that he's setting up the conditions for it.
I think he is aware of it because you look at everything he gets behind. It's always identity politics. Ever since he came into office, it was always about identity politics with him. Since day one. And we all know where that leads. It's a part of the WEF agenda. It's a part of everything else that he's with. All about spreading the division with identity politics. And you're right. It's not necessary.
When I go out into the community, I see people from all kinds of different cultures where I live. When I go to other cities, like I go to Toronto, I see all kinds of diversity up there. And really, when I'm out shopping or just going about my daily business, and I think you'll agree with this, Brendan, do people get along? Yep, yeah. We basically all get along. Are there sometimes, some problems here or there? Yep. You know what? We would all be a lot better off if that guy on the screen would just leave us all the hell alone. We'd all get along much better. But when you listen to what that guy has to say, it just jacks people up. Sorry, maybe some people don't want to hear that, and maybe you think I'm nuts, but I don't think so. That guy's a problem. Big problem. Hate spewer, bigot, blackface prime minister. He's the bigot. He's the racist. That guy right there. Big time black-faced fascist prime minister. Gotta go. Gotta get rid of that guy. Vote him the hell out. He doesn't bring people together. And don't trust him on this Ukraine stuff, folks. Don't trust him. Don't trust that guy. Mr. Gun Control wants to send heavy artillery. What a freaking joke. Honestly, what a joke. Let's take a short 30-second break. We'll be right back.
The New World Order. Government overreach. The Great Reset. Mainstream media lies. Now more than ever, independent voices are needed. Donate now at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. Maverick News. The antivirus program for your mind.
And you can donate at freedomreporters.com to support our independent journalism here on the Maverick News channel. To those of you who have donated, I'm endeavoring to send out thank you emails, trying to get caught up on some of that kind of work. But it's very difficult to keep up with all the correspondence. The phone calls coming in today alone just sucked up a ginormous amount of my time today. I really appreciate the calls. Don't get me wrong. I really do. And I really enjoy being able to engage with people over the phone on one-on-one conversations that I have with people when they call here and just get me on the phone directly. So do appreciate it. But yeah, it took a lot of my time today. I didn't even get to send out thank you emails today. But to those of you who have donated already, thank you. It really does make everything we're doing here possible. We have set up now a call-in phone system with a level of automation for call screening. So that's what the money's being used for. We're working on the website. We're expanding out onto other platforms. The donations that you're making are making all of this possible. And we are getting thousands of new subscribers and followers every month now. It's incredible. And we are so grateful to be able to share this alternative, independent perspective with Canadians, Americans, really people around the world, because we do have, honestly, now a worldwide audience here on the Maverick News channel. And none of that would be possible. None of this would have happened if it wasn't for you. So thank you. We do need your support. If you can donate, you can do that at freedomreporters.com, or you can click the hot link in the YouTube, Facebook, and Rumble descriptions, and that will take you straight to the donation page where you can support our free independent journalism, which obviously we're conducting in the face of this Trudeau tyranny here in Canada and this Biden bureaucracy in the United States. So again, thank you to everyone for everything you've done so far. And over to Brendan to tell you the other way you can support our work here.
Aside from helping us out financially, you can also be a really big help to us by hitting the thumbs up button, the Rumble button. So yeah, I can't emphasize that enough. Please smash the like button. Furthermore, also be sure to subscribe and hit the bell button for notifications as well. All of these things help defeat algorithms and things of that nature. It helps us out hugely. And also, just by participating in the conversation, we'll be opening the lines at some point later today. And that's also a big help to our program here. We love hearing your perspective, so be sure to leave comments, engage in the conversation. This is not possible without you guys. We truly do appreciate all of the blessings that you have bestowed for us. So thank you so much for your time and for your engagement with us. I can't state enough how thankful we are.
And I do want to go back to the Prime Minister. This is him later in the day. This is him meeting with the Muslim community in Cambridge after his brief stop. And I believe it was Kitchener, is where we watched that previous video from. But this is him addressing the Muslim community there. And again, listen very carefully to what he says and how he says it. And he's not, he tempers this a little bit, but it's still playing the race card to push those buttons.
But also the way you've contributed to the entire country. We are all better off for it. And Canada can continue to grow and learn and be better with that. But at the same time as we recognize our successes, we have to think that it hasn't always been easy. And Canada hasn't always been as open and welcoming as we should be. And quite frankly, over the past few years, partly because of the pandemic, partly because of divisions in some of our politics, there have been a little more anger, a little more intolerance than I think we need to see in Canada.
He has no business even using that word or in that way. He just does not have, he's given up his moral right to use it.
So that's where everyone needs to come together and stand together and be there for each other and listen and learn from each other. And above all, fight to respect each other, to be there for each other.
Fight to respect each other. Got to fight. Got to fight. So he's calling for tolerance and peace, I guess. You got to fight. Interesting choices of words that he uses. Everything with him is sort of upside down and backwards all the time. Double speak, always double speak.
And I know that this generation of young people, all of you kids, get that. You understand how important it is to open yourselves up to the world while at the same time being proud of who you are and where you're from. And in Canada, there's no contradiction there.
But isn't it interesting how in the same breath, he talks about how Canada hasn't always been as open and as tolerant and as welcoming as it should have been. Well, who's he blaming for that? He's laying blame on the one hand. Then he rushes right over here and he says we have to fight to respect each other and talks to the young people. What is he really saying? Really listen to what he says and how he says it. What he's saying is Canada's been kind of a racist place. There were some pretty racist people who didn't really want to let you guys in. But now that we're in power, it's a much more tolerant and welcoming place because we're liberals and we let you all in. But there's still racists out there, and all you young people, you all know it because we've told you there's white supremacists around every corner. And that's why you have to fight against hate. You got to fight against hate. Anti-hate. Yeah, anti-hate. That's really where it comes back to, doesn't it? Because it's all doublespeak. What he's really doing is he's instilling fear in these young people today with this very soft doublespeak, this soft language of racism that he employs. He's so full of crap. His words, even now, even here, where he's talking about tolerance, he's dividing people. He's scaring these people. He's convincing these young people that there's kind of still racists out there because they don't really align with us politically. They've got different political views. So there's been just kind of a little bit too much anger out there. We got to fight against that. All this anger. And where's that coming from? Oh, yeah, it's all those other people, not our party. It's because, it's partly the pandemic, but mostly because it's a bunch of racists. That's what he's saying. If you really listen to what he's saying, that's what it is. This is disgusting. And the people are standing behind him going, "Yep, I agree. Yep, absolutely." Because why? Because in this kind of rhetoric that he uses, he convinces them. This is what he's doing. He's manipulating these people. He's manipulating them to get their votes. He's not bringing people together. He's saying, we support the Muslim community and we have to fight against all that racism out there because there's a bunch of white supremacists out there who really don't like you. You got to vote for me because I'm a liberal and we'll protect you.
And the idea of you need to fight to respect each other, that makes no sense. I have never had to fight to respect somebody else my whole life. I mean, there's certainly times where we maybe have to be a little more forceful to receive respect back, but however, I've never...
That choice of that word, to fight, it implants the idea that there's something to fight against. Mm-hmm. What are you fighting against? White supremacy, racism, all of the isms that he wants to throw at you. It's so tiresome. It's so old, but it still plays well with new Canadians who don't have a history here yet, who have not been integrated into the community yet. Or maybe they already have been here for a while, but they're within their own community and they've been listening to this schmuck for far too long, and they believe that they're in a racist country where they have to fight against, I don't know, Brendan, I guess you and I. But I'll tell you, I go out onto the street and into my neighborhood, there's no problem. There's no problem, not that I'm seeing. And I have people phoning me, people from all different backgrounds, different cultures, religions, whatever. I often just don't even know, right, where people land on this spectrum or that spectrum or what demographic. I don't know. A lot of the time, it's just a voice on the phone. The point is, it doesn't matter. What matters is whether you care about freedom or whether you subscribe to authoritarianism, fascism under a dictator like this guy.
There's some isms.
Whether you're going to let him manipulate.
Yeah.
This guy's disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. But he's so crafty with the way that he's a wordsmith.
Well, that's what he went to school for, right? That's what he went to school for. Acting. It's all about how you use language.
And all these words, they're very carefully chosen, designed to push buttons. He's very good at it. But he divides people. And it's got to stop, because this guy, that's why he's so damn dangerous. He's just so damn dangerous to the country. And he's not the only one. Jagmeet Singh, just as bad, maybe worse.
I would classify Jagmeet Singh as way worse than Trudeau. He's far more dangerous.
Yeah, they're in league together, no question about it. I'll tell you this. This is another thing. Another phone call from another supporter today, another friend, someone who's become a friend since we started this program. Okay? And he mentioned something, and I've thought of this myself many times. The anti-hate, anti-freedom, pro-censorship legislation that this goof is setting up and getting approved right now. You know who it's going to come back to bite in the end? Him. It will consume him. It will consume all of them eventually. You think, you blackface moron, you think you're immune to your own hate? It's going to come back and bite you right on the ass. It's coming for you. You're doing it to yourself. You're doing it to everybody because you're dividing the country. Look at the color of your skin, pal. Look at your rhetoric. Look at your background. Look at who you are. Look at your privilege. Check it. They're coming for you. They're going to come for you. Because what goes around comes around when you do crap like this. You think you're immune? You just wait. You just wait. It won't be tomorrow. It won't be next month. It might not even be in 2025. But down the road, these left-wing, fascistic, communist, dictator types, these authoritarians, they all end up eating each other alive.
Oh, big time. Absolutely. The left eats itself at every chance. And you see that with, especially with the so-called LGBT, so on and so forth community, that they don't even get along with themselves. How many times has the pride flag changed? How many times has the letter abbreviation changed? How many times has, like, they don't get along with each other, and then you throw Black Lives Matter into that, and then they get along even less. The only thing the left knows how to do at any time is eat itself.
And they will come for him. They tolerate Justin Trudeau right now because he has power. They tolerate the guy. They put up with him. Trust me. You think Jagmeet Singh likes him? I hardly think so. He puts up with them. Trudeau is a necessary evil for Jagmeet Singh right now. But down the road, he's coming for you, pal. And he'll eat you alive. They're all coming. I'm just telling you the way it is. This kind of politics, look, even in the States, they eat their own eventually on the left.
Yeah, I mean, that's why Joe Biden running in the next election is up in the air, because, right? Like, that's a legitimate conversation that's being had on both sides of the political aisle. It's how it operates.
Yeah, it just that's why Canada is lost. I don't know how we get it back exactly. It has to be politically. We need to find a way back. But Canada's lost, and it's because of this kind of crap that we see coming from this moron. Worst prime minister in Canadian history. Worst prime minister ever. Absolutely the worst. Because you know why? He's not really the prime minister of Canada. Yeah, he has the title, but he's been working actively to undermine the country, to give it away, to give up our sovereignty, to make Canada a post-nation state, to put Canada under the umbrella of a new world order, a one world government, where Canada is really subservient to it, where we no longer have. He talks about defending democracy. What a load. This is a guy who doesn't even believe in Canada as its own nation state. So what are you defending? He's not even interested in defending Canadian democracy or Canadian sovereignty. This guy's got no moral authority to talk the way that he does at all. He just talks like this because it resonates with people at a particular time because he watches the polls. Canada, democracy, Ukraine. Jesus. What a joke.
No,
What
it is a
farce.
joke. Look, I mean, I laugh at these things, right? But the reality is it's not funny, people. It really isn't funny at all. I feel that things are so far gone that I don't know how to even fix them anymore, other than
you know what disturbed me the most out of everything that I saw him say today and everything I saw him do was standing there and speaking directly to those kids, because those kids will remember that day probably for the rest of their lives because the prime minister came to address them. I know if I was a kid and the PM came to my community, it would stick with me forever. Those words are seared into those young minds. And because he so carefully crafted the message and twisted it, he implanted a seed, honestly, a seed of hate in those young minds. Did it in a way that seemed very tolerant, when in fact it's really just the opposite. But then so much of what we see from that side of the political spectrum and from the Liberal Party and the NDP today, so much of what we see is the opposite of what they label things, title things, call things. When they say one thing, they really mean the opposite. Canada is a really intolerant place, but we're so welcoming. But that's just us liberals. Got to vote for me. We'll protect you. What a racket. What a scam.
It's a huge scam.
Scares the crap out of me, man. Scares the crap out of me.
That's the bottom line, is all these things are frightening. And have these things gotten better, or have they gotten worse since Justin Trudeau has come into office?
Far worse.
I would say they're far worse. Everything is far worse off in this country now that Justin Trudeau is the leader.
Far, far, far worse.
So,
and before we move on too much further, let's bring up, because this is related, let's talk about this Government Charter of Rights Conference.
Ooh.
Which was held, I guess, this week, right? Just a day or two ago?
Yeah, I believe it was on Monday. So there was a conference for the 40th anniversary of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms for Canada. And at this conference, they had the Canada Anti-Hate Group guy. I can't remember his name right this second. Hold up, I'll have it for you. He had
the law professor, John Packer.
Yep, Bernays
and
Farber.
And there's Fareed Khan, who was the he's with Canadians United Against Hate.
And believe me, folks, you're not going to want to miss this, because I saw this conference happening real time, and I almost watched it, but I was too sick to this doesn't ever happen to me. I'm the guy who could sit there and listen to CBC radio and try and figure out like what the hell type of thing they're trying to push, right? But I'm listening, and I just had to turn it off. I was like, no, like the charter is fundamental for Canadians, and they, over the past 2 years, they have wiped their backside with it. And so this conference is happening, and this Blacklock reporter comes in and rips them a whole new one. So you're not going to want to miss this. This is amazing. This made me feel so much better yesterday, and I think it might make you feel better as well.
Do you have it queued up, or do you?
Oh, I thought you had it queued up.
Yeah, I can get it queued up. I've got it here. Hang on.
2 secs.
I've got it.
No,
we'll
I got
bring it up. You got it? Okay.
Yeah.
You can roll it on your end. So yeah, this Blacklocks reporter really holds the guy from what's the name of the Canadians United Against Hate. This is Fareed Khan. Fareed Khan. You want to talk about hate? You want to? This is just so typical.
This
these
is just
days.
this is so amazing because I mean I wish I watched this real time when it happened now. But anyway,
So again, a conference on the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. This guy's with Canadians United Against Hate. And thank God for this Blacklocks reporter who holds him accountable for the hateful things that this guy says.
all right, I'll let it rip.
This is for you. I'm struck that outside of a casual reference by the moderator, no one mentioned Cabinet's invocation of the Emergencies Act February 14th. That seems like an odd omission for this panel. And I wondered why. Mr. Khan, I looked up your social media accounts. You described the Freedom Convoy protesters as human slime. I'm quoting. You said that plaintiffs awaiting bail hearings charged with mischief, quote, deserve to spend years in jail. You said any publicly funded employee, including a nurse who donated a penny to the Freedom Convoy, needs to be removed from their job. That was on February 16th on your Twitter account. And you said any conservative MP who supported protesters needs to be arrested. Mr. Khan, that's a little bit rough coming from an advocate of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Could you comment?
Yeah, I don't think I ever used the term human slime. I'd like you to send that to me if where I posted that. But yeah, I was harsh. I was harsh on the protesters. This was a protest organized by people with a known history of racism, white supremacy, Islamophobia, anti-Semitism. They allowed white supremacists and neo-Nazis to march around freely within the protest.
No, they did not. We've all shown you the footage. You've seen the footage. You can look it up for yourself.
Lie.
These individuals were all booed off of Parliament Hill. Nobody wanted them around. There was one sighting of one swastika and one
Two
sighting
people in
of an individual with a Confederate flag. This is a lie. Those people were all told to leave. Nobody tolerated it at that protest. He's lying.
Lie.
Big lie.
Great
They had
big
no
fat
problem
liar.
with that. And frankly, the politicians who stood by these protest organizers and enabled them and encouraged them, in my view, were committing sedition under the criminal code. And, look up the sections. These are people, the people who organized the protest and supported the protest were calling for the overthrow of the government. And frankly, the people who were victims of that protest and occupation in downtown Ottawa, they didn't deserve what happened to them. We get hundreds of protests in Ottawa every year. Some are very, very aggressive.
I think we can move on, Mr. Khan. I think you've answered my question. The slime was on your Twitter account on February 17th. Does no one here agree with the Canadian Civil Liberties Association's challenge of the invocation of the Emergencies Act in federal court? Does nobody here think that's a good idea, whether you like truck drivers or not? And is there nobody here who wanted to join the 15 civil rights petitioners yesterday who asked Cabinet for a clear above-board inquiry into why they invoked the Emergencies Act? Forget about what the truck driver...
And that's where the clip ends. But
that guy's a great big fat liar. Huge liar. Liar, pants on fire.
And that
hanging
reporter,
from a telephone wire.
And that reporter is a Canadian hero right there. Holy crap. If that is not your feel-good news of the day, I don't know what the hell is. It's watching those slimy individuals squirm there.
But it doesn't make me feel good because this is constant. It goes on all the time. They lie. They lie. We saw them lying all through the protest in Ottawa. We saw the Prime Minister lie. We saw the Premier lie. We saw the police chief in Ottawa lie. And the interim chief lie. And then we saw them bring in their goons and beat the crap out of people.
And
all of it based on lies.
And look at the fact. And the fact being that he's trying to cite Canadian criminal code saying, oh, this is sedition. Nobody has been charged with sedition. If you're so confident that is the case, then they would have been charged with it. Nobody's charged with sedition.
And you know something else, Brendan? You can look up the definition of sedition, and I suppose you can interpret it any way you want. But in my estimation, it's not sedition just because you say that you want to take political action through protest in order to either get a political outcome, to have policy change, or have a prime minister resign because of the pressure you put on apply through peaceful protest. That is not sedition, and that is not calling for the overthrow of government. There were some people who added on to the list of demands from the Freedom Convoy who said, we
Drop the
want
mandates.
all of these mandates dropped, and or we want the prime minister to resign. So either way, that's what we want to see as an outcome from this protest that we're engaging in. That, in my estimation, and I'm not a lawyer, but I don't see that being sedition. I don't see that being a call to overthrow the government. That's not what that is. That's people saying we're going to engage in peaceful protest because the policies of the government are so out of line and so unconstitutional that we either need all these provisions dropped, all these mandates gone, or we need the prime minister to resign so that we can then pave the way for change. But calling for the resignation of a prime minister is not calling for the overthrow of a prime minister or a government. There's a huge difference.
Well, let's take a look at just really quick here. The definition, as per Merriam-Webster, of sedition: incitement of, resistance to, or insurrection against lawful authority.
Was it an insurrection? No, not even close.
No.
Were they armed? No. Were there any weapons found in Ottawa? We've seen questions asked, in committees following the shutdown of the protest in Ottawa, where police have been asked about that, and no, there were no weapons found there. Even the act of, there was some sort of an arson that resulted in a small fire, I believe, in a hotel or a business. And even that was shown after the fact to not even be related to the truckers. The media tried to pin that, and the politicians pinned that on the truckers. But in the end, which we knew from the beginning anyway, but police eventually released information, and it was actually released about 3 or 4 weeks ago, where they confirmed that it had nothing to do with the truckers at all, that fire. That was the extent of whatever they could try to pin on people. And all the other crap that they tried to stir up was complete fabrication. We showed you that. We proved it through the live footage that we brought to you from Ottawa. Carla, our eyes and ears on the ground there, our roving reporter, she had all kinds of live footage that we ran right here on the broadcast. Lie, 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 lie. And all this racism stuff, again, what is this guy from this Canadians United Against Hate? He's spewing hate. That's what he's doing. And he's playing that racism card to, again, push people's buttons. And you tell new Canadians in particular that they're being threatened by a bunch of white supremacists, and you know who they really are? It's all them truckers. All those beer belly, redneck, hayseed hick, Tennessee banjo playing, backwoods, Northern Ontario, smelly Walmart truckers. That's who it was. All a bunch of freaking racists. Redneck racists. You got to watch out for those guys. You know who we're talking about. Vote for me. Vote for Justine, because he'll protect you. That guy, Mr. Fareed, you are the racist. You are full of hate. You're full of crap. Full of crap. And he knows it. He knows it. These organizations are set up. This is how it works. You set up an organization. You call it anti-hate this or anti-hate that. You get a bunch of government funding from these left-wing, communistic, fascistic politicians like Trudeau, and he supports it. But then you become a useful tool for the Prime Minister and his political causes. Because what do? Then what you do is you target specific people. You call yourself anti-hate, but what are you really? You're a propaganda machine. You become an integral part of the propaganda machine because now you're an authority on anti-hate and racism. Why? Because you get a name and you get government funding. So then, when needed, you construct a narrative. And because you're viewed as an authority, like say during a big protest in Ottawa involving a bunch of truckers that the government doesn't particularly care for because they want to keep all of their authoritarian lockdown measures in place during a public emergency called a pandemic. Well, they roll out these anti-hate groups and they spin up a narrative about how these truckers are actually a bunch of terrorists, a bunch of white supremacists. And then you call in the media, and the media interviews the guy from this group. And then that narrative gets play in the media. And the politicians get to comment on it. And they stir up public opinion. And then it becomes a perpetual self-reinforcing feedback loop. And they point, and when they charge people with things, they point to the comments made in the media that came from these experts on anti-hate who made crap up to begin with. It's all made up, but because they're supposed to be an authority on racism, it's taken as gospel and fact. And it's even often presented in court as evidence, when in reality, it's a spun up narrative. That's the way it works now, folks. These guys make stories up, the media reports it, the politicians comment on it, pass new legislation. It results in new policies being implemented across the systems and institutions that we have in place, including police, who then formulate their plans of action and take particular positions and approach the community in a particular way, and it affects their methodology and their ideology as it relates to the execution of their jobs. And what do you end up with? You end up with a bunch of goon cops beating the crap out of a bunch of peaceful protesters who are basically truckers who normally are busy delivering food to your supermarket, but they've seen their freedom stolen away from all Canadians, and they're out there fighting for everyone, and the government gets to send in their goon squad to crush the rebellion. There wasn't a rebellion or an insurrection to begin with. It's a bunch of crap, and the media perpetuates it. And it gets to be such a mind screw that people start to believe their own BS. Again, this crap has to stop. And these anti-hate groups, they are the opposite of anti-hate. They are all about hate. They're about spreading racism. They're about anti-Christian, anti-white, anti-this, anti-whatever the hell it is that's opposed to whatever the government might be saying at the particular time. So it can be anti-mask, it's anti-vaxxer, it's anti-whatever the hell it is, but they're against everything that they're just against so much. They're not about inclusivity or bringing people together. They're anti. If it's anti-fascist, Antifa, or anti-hate, you can be damn sure it's the opposite of what they say they're anti-against.
You ever notice that they're never for anything?
I'm going to say something else. I was going to go take pictures of. I knew we were going to come down this path today. I didn't take pictures of it. But you all are all going to know what I'm talking about. You see all those signs around that say,
Hate has no home
no
here?
home here. What a load of shit. What a gigantic load of crap those signs are. Look at the organizations represented on the signs. You go across there and you look at what are they doing? They're dividing everybody into little groups. Why do they need to divide all the people into all the little groups? Because they want to divide everybody. They're doing it in the name of tolerance and anti-hate, when in reality, they're dividing everybody up into groups so that we can all fight. And the groups represented, many of them, are groups that are predicated, their ideologies are predicated on hate, like BLM.
Oh, and then they're
they're communists.
And then they're complicit in fraud as well.
Whatever they're telling you the name of the thing is, it's probably the opposite of what they're telling you it is. That group, that guy, he's not anti-hate. He's all about hate. They use hate as a tool. They're dividing us. It's sickening. Absolutely disgusting. I'm not about hate. I'm about bringing people together. But I'm not about identity politics because I don't want to divide everybody up. Yeah, you can do whatever you want. But I believe that the individual is paramount. You are unique as a person. You are unique as an individual. You as an individual have rights as an individual. That's what's being violated. I don't care what religion you are. I don't care what the color of your skin is. I don't care about any of that stuff. I don't care what your culture is. The point is, every human being is unique. That's true diversity. Individualism, that's where you'll find true diversity. What Justin Trudeau and the people on the left and all these communistic fascists, what they advocate is not diversity. It's identity politics. It's division. Division by group. You, every single one of you out there, you're all unique. You're all individuals. Rights are all about individuals. The Charter of Rights and Freedoms was written with individual freedoms in mind. There is no freedom in the collective. When Justin Trudeau spins the narrative, spins the words in the way that he does, and talks about rights as part of the collective, he's lying to you. There are no individual rights within a collective. There is only group responsibility at that point. And who speaks for the group? Who speaks for the collective? I'll guarantee you it's not the average Canadian. You know who speaks for the collective? Justin Trudeau. It gives him and the government all the power. There is no freedom in the collective. The sooner Canadians wake up and understand that, the sooner we will be free again. Will we ever get there? I don't know, because people are too afraid to give up all their free crap. And they're too eager to buy in when the government comes forward and starts offering up all this free crap, especially around election time, which is what we're seeing in Ontario right now. And we will see again as we get closer to 2025 for the next federal election. There is no freedom. The argument on the other side is, and I remember reading about this kind of rhetoric, and I can't remember exactly who it was. I think it was a journalist, a prominent left-wing journalist in a textbook that I read when I was a kid. But the argument goes, if a man cannot afford a bus ticket, a bus token, in a free and democratic society, is such a man truly free? And I get the argument, which is that you need socialism to make sure that those who are least fortunate and the most vulnerable are taken care of, and the government will provide at least a minimum amount of support for people so that they can fully participate in society. But that's a red herring, Because the reality is, in a free society where individual rights are paramount, it doesn't mean that the most vulnerable are necessarily completely disenfranchised. In fact, the responsibility that comes with individual rights are such that you need to be responsible for yourself in a society that puts individual rights first and foremost, paramount, prime. It means you need to take care of yourself. But even Adam Smith, the economist, who believed in the free market and in the invisible hand that guides the economy, the free market economy, to maximum efficiency.
Yeah.
Even he acknowledges in some of his later writings that it doesn't mean that it's every man for himself or every woman for herself. What it means is that there is individual responsibility that comes with having your freedom. It means you are responsible for taking care of yourself so that the community doesn't need to take care of you. But it's also in your best interests as an individual to contribute in a positive way and even to donate voluntarily to your community through community service or even through philanthropic donations financially. Because it's in your best interest to live in a free, safe, prosperous community. It doesn't serve you well to have have people in your community who are so poor that they're likely to commit crimes or do other terrible things or even just have to live in poverty because they're maybe disabled. So that's where churches and community groups used to come in, and community support groups, service clubs. We've lost that because why? The government has tried to replace all of that through coercion, because with collectivism, you get authoritarianism. They force you to contribute. If you don't, you either go to jail or they'll execute you. They take from you. They steal. They decide. Justin Trudeau, the government, they decide who gets what, how wealth is redistributed, who pays, who doesn't. And that leads to corruption. And that gives them all the power because they get to sit in their ivory tower, tax this person, tax that person. They get to decide what kind of car you're going to drive. They get to decide what kind of a house you get to live in, whether you're ever going to be able to afford to buy one or not through their policies, because the free market be damned. They get to dictate, and they're well taken care of. And they talk about equality. There's no equality in collectivism. You get elite people at the top who skim everything off and take as much as they want and distribute the crumbs to the rest and make peasants and slaves out of the rest of us. And that's where we're headed. And there's no freedom in that. You either work to get taxed through coercion, and if you don't comply, there can be no dissent. You will go to jail. You will be fined. You will get locked down. You will wear a mask. You will do this. You will do that. You will do this because you have no rights as an individual. And the more free crap they give us.
Hold on. It's a big club and you ain't in it.
The more the free crap they give you, the more of a trap it is. Mm-hmm. Because they use all of that free stuff to make you dependent. And when you then become dependent, they threaten to take it away, and you don't get to participate in society, in their society, which they control, if you don't comply with every little thing that they want you to do. Hence, masks, lockdowns, vaccinations, digital IDs, social credit score. Comply, 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 or else we'll take your bank account and confiscate all your money. We'll make sure that you can't drive. We'll take your car. You want to protest against us? You're going to jail, pal. We don't like what you say. You're censored. You're banned off the internet. We're going to charge you. You go to jail too, just because you don't think the right thing. We don't like you. You're going to jail too, because you know why? We think you might commit a crime. And under Bill 100, you're going to go to jail. we're going to send a cop down there and pull you over on the highway, and we're going to arrest you on the spot, and you're going to jail, pal, because we think you might commit a crime. So under our pre-crime legislation, Bill 100, you're screwed, pal. We just don't like you because you're just way too conservative for us. So we're just going to tell this whole group of people over here that you're a white supremacist, and we're going to lock you up and throw away the key for 10 freaking years. That's the way it works. The more free shit they give you, the more you are enslaved. It's a trap. It's all a damn trap. Wake the hell up. Stand on your own 2 feet. Learn what freedom's really about. You're not free when the government gives you free crap. It's just an allowance, a reward for good behavior. And it's so bad that if you don't comply, if you don't get the thing in your arm, you're not getting a heart transplant. You get to die. Is it that bad? Yup. It's there already. It's there right the hell now. We're living it. People said, well, at least it's not as bad as China. It's freaking worse. I talk to people in China. I do business with people in China. I ask them when I'm talking to them at night because they're in a different time zone, obviously, right? So when it's night here, it's day there. I talk to them overnight. It's worse here. It's worse. Canada is gone. Wake up, Canada. New Canadians, listen to me. Stop buying in to all of this hate coming from this idiot that people call the Prime Minister. He's not a Canadian Prime Minister. He's a New World Order puppet. He's not about Canada. You came here because Canada was a great country, a free, tolerant, welcoming society. There was not anywhere near the level of trouble that we had on the racism front until now. And you know why? Because of Justin Trudeau, and because of Jason Kenney, and because of Doug Ford, and because of Joe Biden. Because of all these left-wing fascistic communists. Stop. Think. Bring Canada back, Canadians. Bring it back. Get rid of these guys. Sweep them aside. It's time. Vote every one of these damn bastards out of there. Get rid of them all. Peacefully, politically. Let's do it. Let's get rid of these SOBs.
Keep asking them tough questions. We got to see these guys squirm, and we got to make sure everybody else sees them squirm too.
With that being said, we're going to ask you to donate again to freedomreporters.com. We're going to take a 30-second break while I calm down, try to recompose myself. But my God, people, we have to do something about this. This is day after day after day. Every day I wake up and it's another assault on real Canadians, on all Canadians, on what was Canada. This has to stop. We'll be right back after this.
The New World Order. Government overreach. The Great Reset. Mainstream media lies. Now more than ever, independent voices are needed. Donate now at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. Maverick News. The antivirus program for your mind.
Help us bring Canada back. Donate. freedomreporters.com. Click the hot link in the YouTube, Facebook, Rumble descriptions. Support our work here as independent journalists. We have so much more to do. Canada is lost. The United States is not far behind. We want to restore this country and save the United States. That's what we're doing here. We're doing that by defending and trying to restore free speech, freedom of the media, freedom of assembly, freedom of association, the freedom to protest. We need to bring that back. And we need a better piece of legislation, a better document than the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which is not worth the paper it's written on, obviously. Support what we're doing. That's what we're doing here. We are fighting Justin Trudeau. We're fighting against you. We're fighting against your liberal BS, your neoliberal fascistic crap to bring back the country that you have destroyed. Don't even use the word freedom anymore, pal. Don't even use those words like tolerance. You don't deserve to. You don't understand what they mean. And stop talking about the charter, because you dishonor the country. You dishonor Canadians every time you open your mouth and talk about it. You don't deserve it. You're a dictator and a great big fat fascist. That's what you are. You divided us all. You've turned the country into a hellhole.
Not only do we need help with those items there, we also need help to make sure that Rick Walker can afford his blood pressure medication and his brown paper bags to help him with hyperventilating. We need these things to keep the show going. It's vitally important. And do remember, you can also help us by smashing the like button, subscribing to our content, and hitting the bell to make sure that you receive Maverick News notifications. These things are all very important. We have a lot of different things that we have underway right now, and we need your help. And we appreciate all the support that you bring to us. And I can't say thank you enough for everybody who tunes in with us nightly. It's amazing. Thank you so much.
I'll try not to die. That's my Rick rant for the night, I guess, right? I think I was overdue.
I think he's feeling better from the virus that shall not be named.
Yeah. Yeah.
That must have been brewing in you for a while.
Oh, Brendan, you have no idea. Especially today, when I was watching that news conference live this morning with JT, and my blood was boiling. I can't take it after a while. The guy is he's just they're all such big fat liars. The stupid thing is, they know they're lying. Anybody who's half intelligent knows they're lying. They know that the people know that they're lying, including conservatives, by the way, a lot of these members of parliament. But they're too afraid to say anything. So nobody wants to stand up against it because nobody wants to be accused of being a liar. I'm telling you, man, it's sick. It's sick. It's absolutely sick. I'm setting up the call system so we can begin to take some phone calls from the Maverick family tonight, from our viewers, which we're really looking forward to engaging in. Just give me a moment here. I will have the show set up in one momento. Maybe you can just talk to the folks for a minute there, Brendan, and I'll have this ready to go momentarily.
Well, I already had the story here lined up, so I might as well talk to you guys about it while we're waiting on Rick to finish that. Also, Rick, you'll need to send me the back door to the other programs, just so you don't forget.
Yep.
I had a big problem with this story coming out. So I think this has a lot to do with the freedom movement and what the government is kind of trying to do. Russian troll farms aiming disinformation war at Canadian anti-vaxxers, says global affairs expert. Okay. It says Russia seems, interesting language, to go back to groups that are predisposed to agree with some of its positions, or at least with the idea that Canada should disengage from whatever is happening in Ukraine. All right. Russian-sponsored disinformation is trying to exploit one of Canada's most divisive issues to shape opinions. Hear about its invasion of Ukraine, says a top global affairs expert on the topic. Oh, I wonder who that could be. Using troll farms that post on Facebook and other social media sites, the campaign often target the minority of Canadians opposed to COVID-19 vaccines and vaccine mandates, and others deeply distrustful of government, said Philip Andre Rodriguez, the deputy director of the Department's Center for International Digital Policy. So I've looked this guy up. This guy is embedded with major universities. He's embedded with the government. I've researched some of his studies that he's put out there, and a lot of the information that comes out is this guy is a far left liberal type. It goes further, okay? So it says deputy director, okay, and so the goal is to send doubt about the official Canadian narrative around Moscow's war against Ukraine, he said during a recent webinar organized by an Oxford University alumni group, which it should be noted that you can't access that webinar anymore. But the point I'm going to make here is this guy is saying whoever doesn't comply with Canada's narrative that has been established on Ukraine is a Russian troll. Now, we know that's not true. We do know there's a long history of Western countries having an over-involvement in Ukraine. We already discussed that. You could check it out for yourself. But it gets even better here because it says Russia seems to go back to these groups, he says, and that could be communities that already have a high level of distrust for the Canadian government, such as having links with anti-vax communities, he said. Russian operatives are targeting these kinds of communities and making these links saying government is lying about COVID-19 and that they're also lying at the same time when it comes to Ukraine. We've seen that quite a bit. Notice he hasn't provided any example up until this point. And it goes further. It says, the threat is persistent and it's growing. One outside expert said the officials' comments were a rare example of the government publicly accusing the Kremlin of such tactics, though Moscow's disinformation efforts have been well documented for years. The government has been very reluctant to attribute these messages to any state actor. I guess it took a war to find the courage to speak out publicly and identify the Russian government. The threat is not going away anytime soon. It is persistent. It is growing, so we really need to be taking it a little bit more seriously. Which, that's scary because that's going to be another means for the government to apply censorship tactics and say, oh, well, you're not allowed to say that because that's a Russian point. You're not allowed to say that. Oh, okay, so society now is going to cancel you because you are a part of some sort of Russian disinformation campaign. In this hour-long presentation, Rodriguez made a distinction between misleading statements issued by Russian politicians and pro-Kremlin media and disinformation. He defined the latter as covert attempts to undermine faith in liberal democracy and institutions and to artificially intensify divisions in society. Well, we all know we just spent an entire broadcast telling you folks who is actually creating the real division in society. Much of the effort since the war started has been aimed at the global South, raising questions about why the West is helping Ukraine and not some other countries, and playing up themes of Western imperialism, he said. For Western audiences like Canada, disinformation agents in Russia infiltrate online forums on sites like Facebook and Reddit, often using troll farms, he said. One such operation, the Internet Research Agency in St. Petersburg, reportedly employs hundreds of workers who operate thousands of social media accounts. That's true, and that has been going on for a long time. But the more important thing is how is the government using that information? So I'm not going to bore you with the rest of this because it is a quite lengthy article. But I'll skip to this part here, and it says they include, here's the examples that they came up with, and it's really quite pathetic. They include the Line Canada, which organizes regular anti-lockdown protests in the Toronto area, including one that saw trucks snarl the city mid-town in February, along with notices about demonstrations, calls for Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to resign, and attacks on COVID vaccines. The Line's Facebook page has recently echoed Russian disinformation on the war, repeating false claims that Ukraine has a hijacked Nazi government, is involved in biological warfare, and burned Russians alive. We've shown you that on Patrick Lancaster's channel. We have shown you this stuff before. And I dare anybody to take a look at the Line Facebook page and tell me what is on there. You see documentary clips from InfoWars. You see clips of Russian officials having conversations. The point is, and I'll wrap this up quickly because I'm sure we got calls coming in the line here. The government is saying, you can only think the way that we want you to think, and you're not allowed to think any other way. Don't listen to any other sources. But just remember, folks, as always, it's super important to make sure that you have your critical thinking skills on hand. Don't take anything at face value. Take a look at both sides of the coin. And so that's the difference between what we do here and what this moron thinks you're doing at home. Use your critical thinking skills. Don't take anything at face value. Do your research. Look into things. But may God help us for what we're about to receive, because this is going to be another feather in the cap of those morons who want to add more internet censorship. And that's my piece. Sorry about that, Rick. I'm sure you're ready. Oh, your audio is off, Rick.
Let's go to the phones. We have Sean, I believe, waiting to join us. Hello, Sean. Can you hear us? Hi, how are you tonight? Well, we're hanging in there, trying to stay as positive as we can in the face of global tyranny.
His audio isn't feeding through, Rick.
Oh, hang on just one moment. I need to bring up. I need to bring you up. Here we go.
Oh,
there we go.
And there. Now we're on the air. So go ahead, Sean. How are you tonight?
doing all right. I saw something on YouTube last night that I found very disconcerting.
We have a heavy amount of echo here.
It's Bill C7.
Okay, yes.
And what they showed on YouTube yesterday is how the government had made it, they changed the criminal code so that people that are living with disabilities, extreme pain, it's now okay for them to end their lives through assisted suicide. But the other part of the news story was that they've also amended it to include people with mental disabilities.
Yes.
Like post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, depression. And now they're giving them that as an option, self-assisted suicide. And the whole point of therapy in these situations is to avoid that from happening. So why this government would put that on there as an option for people with mental issues seems criminal and disgusting to me.
I have personal experience with this, with someone that
Me
I know.
too.
And
I have professional experience with this too.
It's just recently happened. And yes, this change in legislation, which is very recent, is...
Yeah, I think it happened on Wednesday.
Well, actually, with regard to the assisted suicide in the province of Ontario, It happened before that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I know someone that applied for assisted suicide and came very, very close. You need 2 doctors to approve it. 1 doctor did. The second doctor just recently denied it. I can't believe, honestly, in this particular case, that the first doctor would even consider it. Because what you were dealing with was someone who was depressed, I think, after having been locked down for the better part of 2 years, someone who mostly lived alone, moved into a long-term care facility, but still was able to get up, get around, take a taxi or an Uber to go shopping, live life in that way. They still had, in my opinion, plenty of life to live, family, many reasons to continue living. Yes, some medical issues, but who doesn't have medical issues as you get older? But support, and I think still a lot of options to deal with these medical issues so that you could still live a productive or at least fulfilling life.
Exactly.
And what I think, honestly, what is going on is we have these radical left-wing ideologues who don't value human life in the way that we always have, partly because they have rejected God and religion entirely. So there's no moral compass there. And we are also dealing with people who are sometimes eugenicists who subscribe to the idea that there are too many people on the planet anyway. So they're quite happy to have people die, honestly.
Or as they call it, depopulation.
Right.
That's right. So the government broke you, and now they can fix you by just getting rid of you. And look at all the potential money they could save by not having to pay your CPP. That's Canada pension. That's your Canada pension plan. That's
yes.
Yeah. I personally was not that aware of what the situation was until this affected someone who I knew personally and became aware of their story. And it became very, very disturbing to me because this makes no sense. There's this legislation, the way it's written now is so loose and so it opens the doors in such a broad way that it is no longer, in my view, assisted suicide, if it should be used at all, it should be reserved for people who are truly at the end of their life in a lot of pain. They have no hope. There's no way for them to live a fulfilling life anymore. And
no cure.
No cure.
Maybe usually this is reserved for people who are palliative. They're succumbed to bed. They don't have a lot of options. They are at the end of their illness, like stage 3, stage 4 cancer. Not anymore. That's where I believe if it were there, it should be utilized. And look at the reality of the situation. If you actually have mental health issues that really want to drive you to do that, you're just going to do it anyway. You don't need the government to tell you it's okay. And that is an actual faction of society where there are lots of people who are heartbreakingly disturbed, and they already do this.
Sean, do you have a personal experience with this? Sean?
Yes, I do.
Do you want to share any details, or is it appropriate for you to do that? We of course want to make sure that we protect people's medical privacy.
Well, I'll put it this way. I know somebody very close to me, and it's actually somebody I even work with. And there's a few people at work that are going through this kind of stuff. And so when I saw this article, this guy also talked about, like what you said, about how these laws are really loose. And he said what the plan is down the road is, now that everything's so loose, he said what they're going to do down the road is take away the supports that these people use to keep them going. And basically they're going to say, if you can't do your job without the supports, then we're giving you the unalive option of killing yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just definitely not democratic by any stretch of the imagination. And it goes against everything that these therapies and supports help you with.
I don't think it was an accident to have this change in the assisted suicide legislation come while we were in the midst of a pandemic where a lot of elderly people had been locked away and isolated for an extended period of time. I don't think that was an accident at all.
I agree.
And Canadians, people in Ontario in particular, need to wake up to this as well. This is another piece of disgusting legislation that is an assault on our humanity. This is wrong.
Yeah. It is wrong, and it's so wrong, and it's so twisted and perverse. It's hard to wrap my mind around it.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, you have to be prepared if this comes to fruition.
Oh, it already is.
It's in place right now.
Yeah.
So it has come to fruition, yes.
Yeah, it's all ready to go. Not only Canada, right? This is something that is a concern around the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think about World War II, Nazi Germany. That's what they did. They started off rounding up all the people that were disabled or other groups of people they didn't like anybody that was gay, and they would round them up and they would start disappearing.
Yeah.
So if they've already got this legislation in place, how many months or years is it going to be before they come and start rounding people up?
Yeah.
They're definitely heading down the pathway towards that.
I agree.
That's an amazing point that you just made there, actually, because there is heavy ties to people who are homosexuals and committing suicide, which is definitely a sad thing. But now, is the government going to grant license for you to just kill yourself now because you're simply on the basis that you're gay? Oh yeah, we'll hook you up with a doctor and they'll take care of you.
See, these fascists don't need to target Jews specifically to be fascists.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people make that mistake. They think, oh well, it's the same thing in Ukraine. They say, well, yeah, they have a Jewish president, so how could there be Nazis there, right? Or fascists?
Yeah.
Well, they just the point is they target and demonize specific groups, but it can be any kind of a group. And putting truly the most vulnerable people in a situation where they get to choose to die, when really what they're dealing with is a mental health issue in many respects or in many cases, I think it's disgusting. These are fascists that we're dealing with. They don't value human life or human dignity.
No, not at all.
Matter.
I ran this by a friend of mine at work, and you know how the government's already trying to take away the gun laws. Well, my friend had a good idea. He said that since the government wants to take away the guns from law-abiding, properly registered gun-owning citizens, my friend said, well, if the government's taking away the guns, why don't they just give it to people with the mental problems and let them take care of themselves, and then the government won't even have to help?
I don't know.
Well, listen, Sean, we're going to move on because we've got other callers waiting. I appreciate the phone call here tonight. We're going to move on here now to a caller from Ohio. There's no name.
Thank you very much, Rick. Thank you very much, Brendan.
You as
Have
well,
a great
sir.
night.
Thank you,
too.
Sean. Have a great night. And is it maybe Jim that we're speaking with? I'm not sure. In Ohio.
No, this is Ken. I called you Saturday again about Ukraine.
Yes. Okay. Yep.
Okay,
Karen.
you got my name wrong that time. You got it wrong this time.
Yeah, it's not coming up on the screen, but now we know who you are, and welcome back.
Absolutely.
Welcome back.
I can understand your frustration with everything that's going on over in Canada. I have that in the United States. It's the same nonsense that's going on down here.
Yep.
You know it?
Oh yeah,
And
we follow what goes on down in the U.S. Now, I can't say that we know everything because we certainly don't, but I have a good sense of what you're talking about.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
And
I was listening to that idiot Trudeau speaking, like we got the idiot down here, Biden, and all they're talking about is just increase more stuff to go over to the war to just make Russia get more angry with everybody, I guess.
yeah. Yeah, they're poking the bear, right? And that's a big aspect about it.
Yeah, and watching Trudeau up there a while ago speaking, I was watching that when he was opening his mouth and speaking this nonsense, and watching these three stooges standing behind him looking like idiots with masks on outside.
Yeah, I know.
It was a joke.
And I mean, God bless the United States of America, ma'am. And I was very happy to hear about the good news with the mask mandates yesterday as far as airlines go.
Oh, absolutely.
I hope you guys are able to hold on to that. I really do.
Oh, I think so. If we can get everything done and the elections coming up in November, we'll be a lot better off and get some of the stuff rolled back, even the stuff that we don't like right now.
Yeah, yeah. Well, is there anything else you'd like to talk about tonight before we move on? We've got another caller waiting, but what else is on your mind?
Only thing on my mind, Rick, is every time Trudeau and Biden opens their mouth, somebody should be there handing them a roll of toilet paper because we know what's going to come out.
Fair enough. Yep.
That's a good point.
That's my point for tonight. You guys have a good one. Nice talking with you, and take care.
Thank
You as
you.
well.
Thank you for calling in tonight. It's been a pleasure as always again.
Thanks, Karen.
Thank you.
Thank you. And let's move on here to Citizen 9, I believe that's the name that we have on the screen here.
Hello, who do we have on the air?
Not sure.
Hello.
Well, they may have dropped the call.
Yeah, I heard a click.
Hang on. Yeah, no, they've dropped off. Let's see here. We've got somebody calling in, I think from the Ottawa area. Who do we have on the air with us now? Katie?
Kitty.
Kitty.
Yes, that's me, Kitty the prepping cat. How are you?
Well, we're great here tonight. How are you this evening?
Quite honestly, I'm worried. Your rant was absolutely spot on, and main big source of frustration is no matter how logical and how you understand things, the fear that he is trying to instigate. He is doing it quite smartly so, in terms of very insidious. And it's also in reference to the earlier caller about that assisted suicide. I'm very worried about that. My younger son has autism. It's a combination. People don't seem to understand, a lot of them, how serious this is. And when you were throwing your hands in the air, I was standing up, doing high fives, and like, you got it right there. And I'm at a loss as to what to do. I feel helpless.
I think we need to call it out. I think we need to talk about it in forums like this one. We need to share this information, make people aware, because a lot of people, when they hear that kind of rhetoric coming from an authority figure like Justin Trudeau, or even a news anchor who sits there and repeats these lies and these hateful messages, I think a lot of people don't realize how they're being manipulated. So we need to illustrate for people in clear ways to show them exactly how they're using language to manipulate public opinion and to manipulate us as individuals.
Yes.
So that's a start right there. Once you make people aware, show them that in a way these politicians, some of them, are duping us or duping some people. You show people, look, this guy's lying to you. He's duping you. Make people aware. And they'll, wait a minute, yeah, you show somebody that, and if you can make them realize, their attitude toward that politician changes right away. So it's imperative that we do that.
We absolutely must. And the thing is, too, I consider myself a logical, average person. And lately I've come to realize that his fear rhetoric has been seeping into me like a little sponge, a drop at a time, and I didn't see it coming. And even though I know better, I'm sitting here, I was listening to you, and I was thinking to myself, am I going to live long enough to look after my son? You know how it is, and you're a parent, and it's like, okay, you got everything good for your kids, and now I'm sitting here going, okay, I have to live to be at least 95 because I don't trust now to be like, all right, Robert, everything's great, everything's all set, because, it really is very scary. I'd like to quickly address, if I could, I do think a lot of people are losing their minds, not literally, but the lockdown, the effects of a lockdown, which, including us, we are feeling. They're breaking in locally where I live, and they're taking anything now. It doesn't matter what it is. Could be a shovel or whatever. And
just to clarify, so your region is currently experiencing an upkick in crime. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Just, if your shed has an older lock, you'll go out the next morning, find the lock broken, you open the door and the tools are gone, or a shovel, or you'll walk out and that little decoration you had, it's gone and magically shows up in Kijiji a few days later. And we've never seen normal is one thing, if there is such a thing. But this is getting ridiculous, and people are getting hungry. And when people get hungry, they get dangerous. And in the meantime, all of us have been trying to explain to them, but it's almost like there's a blind spot that we haven't found yet, or we can't get through. We can't save everybody, but I feel very helpless because I feel like after everything I've done, I don't know what else to do.
Well, hey, just keep yourself.
I'd be curious as to.
Just keep yourself in perspective. Keep your home, your place, your paradise. Keep your home as your paradise, and don't let negative things into it. It's just, there's only so much an individual can do, right? And you don't want to put the burden of all that on your shoulders, because you won't be successful in doing so. But think about the small little things that you are able to do, whether it be if you endorse a political candidate, helping them deliver signs for an hour or something of that nature. There's all kinds of things that you are able to do, but just keep yourself in perspective and don't burn yourself out, because it's not going to fix anything.
Yes, I try not to. But I wanted to phone tonight because I know there's a lot of me's out there. There's a lot of people that are, you do the stiff upper lip on the outside, but on the inside, you're like, geez, this really sucks.
Yeah, it does.
Like, is there anybody else out there feeling like me? So I'm really hoping that this helps even one person, because they're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
It really is terribly difficult nowadays.
Well, myself and Rick definitely feel like that. We have our own story, which I can't really get into right now, but after the last election, we were in the same boat, like just feeling defeated in a lot of ways. And so, yeah, we know what it's like.
Sure.
We know what it's like to take on too much, and we know what it's like
Yeah, leave being burned out to us.
Yes.
We'll get burned out. You just keep tuning in and watching and supporting in whatever way you can. And that's all we can really ask. And just get involved in your community. Try to make your community a better place. If you're so inclined, get involved in some capacity on the political level, whether it's through school board or city council or supporting a candidate in an election campaign, or just
Or
even calling in here tonight. That's one thing you can do by voicing your perspective.
Well, I do appreciate it because I am hoping it helps someone because if anyone that says they aren't afraid is just lying. And, everyone's got challenges. And if they actually hear someone phone up and say, hey, it's been a real hard few days with this rhetoric and lies that are like, oh, my God, I can't even listen to him. He makes my blood. Talk about blood pressure. Oh, my God. Yeah. Blood pressure goes up. But it just seems very difficult. But I do want to thank both of you, though, because like I say, we do watch it every night. And it was my son actually suggested that I phone into you. He said, they'll make you feel better, Mom.
Well, hey, there's no us without you guys. So I don't know how to.
No problem. You guys have made me feel better right off the bat. But I just to anybody else out there that's listening to me go on here. Hi, how are you? Hang in there. It'll get better.
Well, you're part of the Maverick family here, so you're definitely in friendly territory. And I think your message is inspirational in itself. I'm sure it'll go a long way to making a lot of people feel better.
Well, thank you so much. And the both of you are looking much better. You make sure you take care of yourselves now, you hear?
We'll certainly do our best, yeah.
No Wuhan on bat buffets for me.
Right on. I have lots of tissues. I got a whole bunch on sale at Costco. If you need them, I'll ship them down to you.
Okay. Thank you so much for calling in tonight. We're going to move on. I'm just going to play this little promo here to let people know how they can call in, and we will be right back after this brief message.
Have a good night, guys.
Take care.
Have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Join the conversation. Call 1-833-975-3733. That's 1-833-975-FREE. Speak up. Speak out. Make your voice heard. Maverick News. Fighting for freedom by defending your right to free speech. Be a Maverick. Join us.
And we do have just a little bit of time left in the broadcast tonight, and you can participate. You can get engaged by calling us at 1-833-975-3733. That's 1-833-975-FREE. You can join the conversation here on the Maverick News Channel. Let's move on right now and take a call from Richard Pierce. He's out in West Kootenay. And go ahead, Richard. You are on the air. How are you tonight? What's on your mind?
Excellent. How are you guys doing?
Outstanding. Thank you.
Hello. I just wanted to say thank you to you, Rick and Brendan. Thank you for everything you guys are doing. It's awesome. My big concern is all this censorship push by Trudeau and the government, and where is it going to push all of us? We're in very frustrating and scary times. Like you said, Russia's launching these missiles and everything else. And I do not want to see things get to that point, but where are we at? It's scary.
Well, it's hard to tell exactly where we're at, but I'll tell you this right now. It's good that we're paying attention to this stuff, but freedom always finds a way. And if you take a look at how ideas and conversations like the one we have existed in the past, if it's not going to exist on the internet, then it'll exist in a printing press. If it's not going to exist in a printing press, it'll exist in books. Like, things are still going to get out there. But who knows? Maybe it might even be better because the dark web.
Yeah.
Rick is making a face right now where he disagrees with me.
I do.
Yeah. Well,
I do.
you know, I have 3 kids. I have a grandchild, and you know, I'm only in my late 40s, but so be it. I'm fine with me moving on. It's my biggest concern is for them, you know, and the future of where we are going. And things are so upside down right now, you know. Our leader is not doing things by the way of our Constitution or our rights. So how long do we try and do things politically and correctly and safely and, you know,
I hear what you're saying, and it's a difficult thing, and I do disagree with Brendan. I know that it can be inspirational to say something.
It's tough.
To say something like freedom will always find a way. That's not true. The reality is the United States, Canada, even Western society in general, it has been an aberration. It's been the exception to the rule. Freedom generally does not find a way. Throughout history, we have had kings and queens and dictators in country and country after country throughout history. What happened in Western society when people came here and turned this into what would be characterized as a liberal democracy, that was an aberration, very unusual. That's why it has been so precious. That's why it is gone, but we need to find a way to bring it back. It is imperative. And you're absolutely right. Where are we going? Where are things at right now with this additional censorship legislation, these efforts that are underway to stifle dissenting points of view, alternative points of view, to criminalize political dissent? That's what's going on. And you're quite right. I don't know how long it just continues to go on where people continue to try to find a political solution. But I do know this: anything other than that undermines the integrity of the movement, the freedom movement. However we go about restoring freedom and restoring true democracy in Canada and restoring it to some degree in the United States, it has to be done peacefully. It has to be done in a way that respects the fundamentals of democracy, because you can't approach the creation of a free and open society from a place of authoritarianism and violence. It can't be that way. So we must find a peaceful political solution somehow. I don't have to say, I'm not saying I have all the answers, but yes, you're quite right. It's a very concerning thing.
It is, and you know, the way Justin Trudeau undermines everything, and you guys put it up tonight. I mean, the terminology and the word salad that he uses to put forth this whole rhetoric for the masses that still don't realize what's going on it's extremely frustrating and scary, because, you know, as much as we have all all this going on with Pierre Poilievre and Lucien Lewis, and even as much as Joseph Bourgault, you know, is it enough? And is it going to be enough? You know, it's scary. It really is, and I don't know what else to say about it. You know.
You're right on the money, and at least they're using the word freedom, but I don't think we can trust any of these conservatives as far as we can throw them, with maybe the exception of Mr. Bourgault, who needs a higher profile. I'm not sure about some of these other candidates running for the leadership of the Conservative Party in Canada, because where have they been over the last 2 years when our freedom has been under absolute direct assault? And where are they right now when we have political prisoners rotting in jail? Are they sticking up for them? No,
Or
they're not speaking up.
Pierre Poilievre hosting rallies at a venue that still enacts a vaccine passport.
Well, and that's my biggest concern when it comes down to it. Why is nobody standing up right now and saying anything?
Well, you are, and we are,
you know,
and everybody watching is. So
yeah, absolutely.
So you're in the right place on that front, anyway, Richard.
Well, I just want to say thank you so much for what you guys are doing, and I hope the word spreads. We need it to. Or we're going to be in a very dark place.
Thank you. Appreciate you calling
Thank you
in
so
tonight.
much. I watch you guys every night. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to move on and take a call now from Andrew. Andrew is calling, and how are you tonight?
Good night,
Andrew?
guys.
Good night.
Hi. What's on your mind tonight, Andrew?
Hello?
Are you there, Andrew?
I am. Yeah.
Richard. Oh, it's Andrew. Okay. Sorry.
No, it's me. You got me.
Hello.
Yeah, I noticed. Hello. Hello.
Hi. How are you tonight?
I'm good. How you doing?
Excellent. What's on your mind?
Not too much. I just listened to the show and just want to thank you for everything you're doing. And yeah, it's quite a time we live in. You know, you can't trust the media. Everything seems to be backwards. You know, whatever you see in the news, it's you know, the opposite seems to be true. And yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're in agreement on that. The world is certainly upside down and inside out right now.
Yeah, and now this Ukraine stuff. People don't realize, you know, the history of Ukraine. I think a good thing for people to do would be to research history and see how we've gotten here. And like one of the last callers there was talking about, you know, before World War One, before our governments, it's been like tyrannical, and I think people got to look at that and research history, and you know,
a good place to start as well is also I really can't stop telling people about this, but Ukraine on Fire, you got to see it, especially if you don't, especially if you don't have a lot of time to do that research. You can for sure spend an hour and a half watching that. It's
no, I've watched lots of different podcasts and stuff, coverage on Ukraine that's not from our mainstream media, and you get a total different picture of what's going on over there. And it's sad that lives are being lost, you know, but what the West is doing is not they're not trying to. There's no peace talks. It's all they're just escalating stuff. And it's, you know, it's too bad. But anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah. When diplomacy is walked away from, there's only one other option.
Yeah, I think people don't realize when stuff's taken away, you know, if you don't agree with vaccine, if you're all for vaccine mandates, that's great, or whatever, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But once they establish that, then they can mandate anything, you know. Same with the protests, you know. If you weren't, you know, behind the truckers, that's fine, you know, whatever. You know, everyone's got a point of view, and you know, whatever. But once they can silence protesters for one thing, they can silence protesters for everything, you know, and it's not a problem until you want to protest about something that you care about, and then the precedent has been set.
That's the ticket, Andrew, right there. These liberals got to understand, and they like protesting way more than anybody on the right side of politics likes to. They
protests are, you know, protests are great if you know that's, you know, I think if the government, people should be more aware and hold the government more accountable. There's no journalism left in this country besides guys like you, an independent journalist. I watch the Grey Zone a lot, and, you know, some other stuff, Jimmy Dore, stuff like that has a lot of the people, you know, Grey Zone, which are independent journalists, and they're just it's I don't know. You get a whole different picture. We're being fed daily is, you know, pretty much lies or only, you know, a little bit of the truth. If you read through a lot of the articles on the mainstream media, you might find one line of truth and that's it. You know, the rest is just a bunch of propaganda.
Well, that's why we're here as independent journalists, and that's why we're asking for people to support us by donating at freedomreporters.com or just by subscribing to our channels and spreading the word and calling in and participating by engaging in the conversation. You're helping as well. So there are ways to make a
big
difference.
fan of it. Big fan of what you guys are doing. That's, you know, it's important.
Yes.
Journalism should be calling out the government. You know, in my mind, that's holding them accountable. You know, expose stuff they're doing, and, you know, then the people know. How can you have, like, you know, how can you govern a country if people only know half the truth? You know,
That's right.
Or they're, you know, they're less than half the truth. You know, you're feeding them shit all day, and they believe it. Then it's just a sad state of affairs. I mean, maybe it's been this way for a long time, but just in the last 2 years, I've noticed it with all the COVID coverage and stuff like that, and the propaganda all around that is when I really opened my eyes. And yeah.
Well, Andrew, we appreciate you calling in. We've got other callers waiting, so we're going to move on. But very
awesome.
very good conversation. Good points.
Keep up the good work.
Thanks,
you, Andrew.
Free Assange.
Okay. Hello, Tony. How are you tonight? What's on your mind tonight, Tony?
Well, gentlemen, I wanted to discuss, Trudeau offering weapons to continue on a war. And I'd like to know, have either of you heard of any world leader, including Trudeau, offering to broker a peace treaty to end this carnage?
No.
And why hasn't there been? All I hear is the war drums beating.
Yeah, because they don't want it. They don't want it.
Yeah.
They want a war. They want a war. I mentioned in the broadcast today, the G20 summit has been happening today. And whenever a Russian official stood up at the conferences to talk, all of the Western leaders got up and walked out of the room. There's no more diplomacy. They don't even want diplomacy. There's no conversations happening. Dump the Russian vodka made in Burlington, Ontario down the sink because they don't care. They want Russia gone.
Well, you know, it's funny. There's not all the countries in the world are even supporting this against Russia. A lot of them are neutral or, you know, staying on the sidelines. So it's basically the Western countries that are doing this. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're absolutely right.
And I can't believe that these hypocrites in the Western United States, Canada, Western Europe, the lovers of peace are all of a sudden hawks and wanting war. And do they realize what's at stake? Like, Russia has 2,000 to 8,000 tactical nuclear weapons, and these are very sophisticated. They could be launched by artillery shell. They're so sophisticated, they could take out a tank company, a tank battalion, tank division, accompanying troops, and a very little residual radiation. And they have tactical weapons, EMP, that one device exploded over United States, 300 kilometers in the air, would fry all of our electronics. We'd be in the dark for years, and we'd starve. So, are they cognizant of what's at stake here? Rick, I saw you're very impassioned about wake up people, and to me, that's like I can't believe anybody who would say they're all of a sudden. Most people couldn't even find Ukraine on a map, and it's just pure insanity. It boggles the mind how silly and naive people can be.
You know what? Me too, because this is the same bloody game that they have been playing for the last 75 years. Nothing has changed at all. It's the same stuff, the same psyops. It's the same handbook. Nothing's changed.
Here's a little bit, not trivia. Well, when Bill Clinton was president back in the 90s, U.S. jets were painted with UN logos, and they were bombing the hell out of Serbia and killing civilians. Didn't hear a peep from mainstream media. Didn't hear a peep about that. But when somebody else does it,
how many people?
When Russia does it, oh yeah. And you know, if Donald Trump had been reelected president, this wouldn't be happening.
True.
When Russia there were Russian mercenaries in Syria, President Trump was on the phone to Putin 3 times. Get them out of there or they're going to be killed. Putin didn't believe him. 130 of them wound up being dead. He got them out of there after that because he knew that President Trump walked the walk. He just didn't talk the talk.
Yeah. But I think Trump also made it. I think Putin also knew that Trump didn't have expansionist plans. So the United States and NATO at that time, with Trump in office, did not pose the same threat to Russia, which is also why we would not be going through this right now if Trump had been reelected.
Well, what I say to people, how would you feel if, the United States, let's say, if Mexico started putting, installing nuclear weapons near the U.S.-Mexican border? Would you not think, hey, you better get rid of those or, we're going to do something about it? And I'm going, people have got this tunnel vision when it comes to, I'm not agreeing with Putin, what Putin's doing. I feel horrible for the average person in the Ukraine. It's going to take a generation or more to rebuild that country, if at all. And quite frankly, I think Putin's been restrained. He could have bombed the Ukraine back into the Stone Age if he had wanted to, but he's held back. And we've got these idiots in the Western governments like Biden, Trudeau, European, and they're poking the Russian bear. And I just think, like Rick, you said, insane.
The other thing I can't
I'll leave the final word.
The other thing I can't help but think is, who's going to end up paying to rebuild Ukraine? Us.
Yep. You think China's sitting back, and you know what? They're kind of have an alliance. I read somewhere that they did a big cyber attack prior to the Russians invading Ukraine. They did a cyber attack on the Ukraine. Chinese hackers, government hackers. Mm-hmm. So, China's got what, I don't know, anywhere from 3 million to 3 million to 5 million regular troops, plus I don't know how many millions of reservists, and they're razors. These are tough guys, and so are the Russian troops. And, quite frankly, the Ukrainian troops, they're tough. They're razors. So, meanwhile, our military, they're purging the military of any real, true, good fighting people, but just as long as they're, politically correct and
also lessening
they're woke and all that.
Lessening standards.
Yeah, never mind combat.
It's now acceptable for Canadian armed service members to have face tattoos, and it's all focusing everything on woke.
Oh yeah. Oh, never mind the physical standards. No, if you can't do chin ups and all that. Oh, never mind. No.
We don't need that.
I'm thinking,
as long as you incorporate one of the 50 genders you're in, everybody's welcome.
Well, your guest about a month ago, he was in the Canadian military, and he was saying it takes 2 years just basically to know which way is up in the military for training. And I mean, during World War II and any war, when you basically like 6 weeks or 8 weeks of training, and that's why they kept on using in World War II, any war, the veteran units, blooded units, because they survived. The survivors knew how to fight. But anytime they got new guys that had 6 weeks, 8 weeks of basic training, they knew their days were short. They wouldn't last. But if they lasted, then, well, they lasted. But I can't, the way they're dropping the standards in the military, we'd be sending lambs to the slaughter.
Oh,
correct me if I'm wrong.
No, that's a great metaphor. Also, apart from that excellent point you just made there, you made me think about something else here when you were talking about how with Putin nobody likes what Putin's doing, and what a hell of a position to put critical thinkers in this country who see what's going on with this whole situation, where we have to be like, no, this is not true. And then they're like, well, you're just a Putin supporter. It's like, no, that's not true either.
But where's Henry Kissinger? Where's a Henry Kissinger? Where's the United Nations saying, people, have a ceasefire. Let's talk about this. A Zoom conference. Peace. Pray for peace. Nothing. And the mainstream media is guilty of fanning hatred, basically. And just as it was Japanese Canadians, Japanese Americans were, and German Canadians and Americans were unfairly treated for the most part during World War II. The same for Russians. I've read, what happened to, where's all the apologies now for how they're treating Russians that are living in Canada and the United States, etc. That these people are so hypocritical, it makes me literally sick to my stomach.
You are correct about that. There was a pianist with the Toronto Orchestra, and I believe they kicked him out because he was Russian, and they were going to send him home or something like that.
And we're seeing massive amounts of propaganda. That Brendan brought up that National Post article where they're talking about Russian disinformation, blah, 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 blah. Well, you know what that is? That is in itself a piece of propaganda, that National Post. I guess it was sort of an editorial, but it was a story, but I think it was more of an editorial. And it just, it's all this Russia, Russia, Russia. It's been like that for years because our governments in the West have had their targets set on Russia. They want regime change in Russia. And at every turn, it's, the Russians are interfering in our elections. The Russians are manipulating our economy. They're to blame for all the inflation.
Well, that's not Russia interfered in our with elections. You can look to the Chinese Communist Party and take a look around in your house, see how much stuff is made in China, and see how much stuff is made in Russia. Case closed. The real interferers of elections is the Communist Chinese Party. There was a gentleman who wrote a book. I forget his name now. I think his last name's Cooper, but he wrote about how the Communist Chinese are like the illegal drug trade, everything. They've got their dirty finger in pretty much everything. They've bought so many Western politicians. They own them. It's ridiculous.
Including in Australia, actually, there's some weird stuff going on with Australia due to it.
Well, they're considering Australia ripe for colonization.
Yeah,
and
but considering how close Australia is to China, they're absolutely going bananas about it over there. And there has been some politicians who have had some interesting connections with some Chinese individuals.
Yeah, but I never hear anything mentioned about both the Communist Chinese Party. But of course, they don't want to bite the hand that feeds them, or bribes them, I should say. But I'll leave that. I'll let another caller in on that note. But it's great talking to gentlemen, and once income tax season's over, I hope to make a donation.
Well, we
to your worthy.
Thank you very much. We appreciate
the worthy
the call.
News outlet.
Thank
All
you
right,
so
thanks,
much.
guys.
All
Bye
right.
now.
Thank you.
Call back anytime.
Thanks.
And that being said, you can donate at freedomreporters.com to support our work here on the Maverick News channel. You can hit the hot link in the YouTube, Facebook, and Rumble descriptions and go straight to the donation page. We do need your help. Yeah, I'll get down on my knees and beg, because without some financial support, we just can't continue to do the work here, because there are expenses involved, especially as we continue to expand out onto other platforms and with our website and the other work that we're doing. And even this phone system that we're making use of here tonight, every single phone call costs money. Believe it or not, it costs money, because it's a system that that auto screens calls. There's software associated with it, and every single phone call, there's a cost associated with each call that comes in every second that we field these phone calls. That's just one example of what the funds are being used for here on the Maverick News channel. So we need your help. That's really the bottom line. You can, again, donate at freedomreporters.com, and I'll throw it over to Brendan before we wrap up for the night to tell you how you can support us in other ways.
You could be sure to tell all your friends about us, share our content. We are working on even more content. There's going to be lots of stuff coming out from myself and Rick. We also have fabulous guests coming your way as well. We do have a special guest tomorrow. I will not reveal the name tonight, but you'll have to keep an eyeball
Actually,
out for the
he's
thumbnail.
pretty much
should we?
confirmed, isn't he? So I think we should. I think we should
Yeah,
tell
he is
people who's
confirmed.
coming on tomorrow night. You go
We have
ahead.
tomorrow. We have tomorrow, 6 p.m. Suspense.
Should I do a drum roll?
Maxime Bernier.
Yeah.
Maxime Bernier is coming on the show from at 6 p.m. tomorrow. You won't want to miss it. It's going to have.
And for those of you in other countries who maybe don't know, Maxime Bernier is the leader and creator of the People's Party of Canada. I guess people are characterizing the PPC as a populist kind of movement, a populist party. I would say that it started out as a primarily conservative party for homeless conservatives who sort of felt that the Conservative Party of Canada left them. But it's become much more than that. It's a much bigger tent now. And that's because of the civil liberties issues that we are faced with as a nation in Canada. And if you're in the United States, you're definitely going to want to tune in for this, because it's the issues that Max will speak to tomorrow night are international in scope, not just national. These are all issues of freedom, and that's largely what the PPC is about.
And you've seen him on Fox News. He's been on Tucker Carlson. He's been all over the place. There was an incident where he was arrested and that sort of thing because he was exercising his mobility rights in Canada. He was traveling to a political convention, and so they arrested him for that. So there's another example of a political prisoner. Look, Maxime Bernier is in on the fight of globalism, I believe. And so that's why it's going to matter to you. So be sure, tell your friends about it. Check in. We're going to have that up tomorrow, 6 p.m. Maxime Bernier is going to be here. And with that being said, be sure to also make sure you like this video and smash the subscribe button. There's going to be more great content like that coming out in the near future. I appreciate everybody for tuning in. We love you all. Have a good night, and thank you guys for all being Mavericks.
And I am Rick Walker, also with the Maverick News Channel. And we will see you all back here tomorrow night, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Maverick News Channel. We are the Freedom Reporters. Tune in. Same bat time, same bat channel for Maxime Bernier, leader of the People's Party of Canada, tomorrow evening. We will catch you all on the flip side. Thank you, everyone, for watching. It's